Some ancient discoveries feel less like history and more like unfinished questions. A carved object appears that no one can fully explain. A structure stands where its construction should have been nearly impossible. Measurements reveal precision that seems unexpected for its era. These details do not immediately rewrite history, but they quietly challenge the confidence of the explanations we rely on. Archaeology often provides fragments rather than conclusions, and sometimes those fragments suggest abilities, ideas, or knowledge that do not fit comfortably within established timelines. The past, it seems, is not only about what we have already understood, but also about what we may have overlooked. In the ancient land of Colchester, once the first capital of Roman Britain, the system known as the Colchester Roman Circus vaults has long been regarded as one of the most enigmatic surviving structures of Roman entertainment architecture. Although the entire racecourse above ground has almost completely vanished over time, the underground vaults, buried deep beneath the surface, emerge as unexpected witnesses, carrying with them a multitude of unanswered questions. They reveal scattered clues about a once magnificent construction, while simultaneously drawing archaeologists into a maze of speculation due to details that do not align with the typical model of a Roman circus. From the foundation, structure, brick walls, and strange worn grooves to deliberately placed objects, all of these elements form a picture that is both tangible and mysterious, as if this place once concealed a mechanism unknown to modern historical records. What makes the vaults particularly remarkable is their scale and complexity, which far exceed the requirements of an auxiliary support system for a racecourse. Typically, Roman circuses required only basic foundations beneath the stands, yet in Colchester, the vault walls are so thick that they evoke military architecture. The layers of brick and mortar are reinforced densely and uniformly, indicating the need to bear enormous weight. This raises the question, was there a massive superstructure above the vaults, far larger than what is usually seen in Roman constructions in Britannia? Or did the structure itself play a role never clearly documented, something beyond the function of a standard entertainment venue? Geological analyses reveal that the vaults were built with astonishing precision, arranged in parallel alignment with the circus track, yet some sections display unusual deviations. These deviations have led some scholars to suggest that the foundations below were not entirely newly constructed, but were possibly reused from an even older structure, perhaps predating the Roman presence in Colchester. However, the greatest and most fascinating mystery is the presence of traces that appear to indicate a lifting or moving mechanism, a feature entirely absent from Roman circuses elsewhere in the world. When examining the floor of the vaults, researchers discovered long, parallel grooves with consistent depth and wear patterns resembling marks caused by repeated friction from pulleys or rotating axles. Other areas contain evenly shaped depressions, possibly used to secure wooden or metal components. Based on their distribution, it is clear that these features were not random, but part of an organized mechanical system that required deliberate engineering. The presence of these mechanical traces has inspired a bold hypothesis. The Colchester Roman circus may once have included a form of moving stage similar to mechanical stage systems used in Roman theaters, but applied here within an outdoor racing arena. Roman theaters often featured lifting platforms, scenery hoists, and shifting backdrops that could transform an entire scene within minutes using pulley networks, wheels, and movable wooden platforms. Yet no historical text has ever recorded the use of such technology in a circus, an environment focused on speed, spectacle, and public excitement rather than theatrical performance. Why then do such traces appear in Colchester? One group of scholars suggests that the mechanism may have been related to starting gates for chariot or horse races. Some Roman circuses use synchronized opening systems involving cords and rotating axles to ensure fairness among competitors. However, when comparing the spacing of the grooves, the position of the depressions, and the load distribution models, many features do not match the architectural design of known starting gates. Moreover, the grooves at Colchester are much larger and deeper than necessary, suggesting a heavier and more complex mechanism, possibly capable of supporting objects or wooden structures above ground. Some specialists propose that the vaults may once have supported rising barriers, performance platforms, or visual effect devices used during Roman festivals, functions never mentioned in surviving Roman texts about Britain. Another theory suggests that the system may have served a ritual purpose. Items found within wall niches, such as coins, amulets, and ceramic fragments, were clearly not random trash, but intentionally placed objects. These align with rituals of good fortune, building protection, or ceremonial offerings preceding significant events. If the lifting mechanism did operate here, these rituals might have been related to activating or marking specific phases of its use. Some experts even speculate that such rituals could have originated from local pre-Roman traditions, later adapted by the Romans uniquely at Colchester. The more researchers study the vaults, the more contradictions emerge between expectations for a Roman circus and what actually exists. If the grooves and wear marks truly belong to a lifting mechanism, why is there no Roman document describing such a unique construction? Some archaeologists believe that the superstructure was dismantled early on to reuse materials, causing all mechanical evidence above ground to vanish. Others argue that the mechanism may have been built primarily of wood, a material highly perishable, leaving only its stone foundation supports after thousands of years. What remains puzzling is that the ground surfaces show none of the chaotic collapse patterns typical of abandoned structures. Instead, they appear unnaturally clean, reinforcing the theory of intentional dismantling. Today, as 3D reconstruction models are developed, researchers realize that no interpretation consistently aligns with all available evidence. One reconstruction suggests that the grooves operated a massive door opening and closing at different phases of an event. Another proposes a moving wooden platform capable of carrying people, props, or animals. Notably, when load-bearing tests are simulated, the thick walls and depth of the vaults prove structurally appropriate for supporting heavy mechanical systems, an indirect confirmation that something substantial once operated here, far beyond the function of a simple technical basement. The mystery of the Colchester Roman circus vaults lies not only in their survival long after the superstructure disappeared, but also in their preservation of clues, hinting at an unidentified technological innovation. Did the Romans experiment with an outdoor mechanical stage, combining performance and racing? Did they adapt a native British technique that modern scholars can no longer recognize? Or are we looking at the remnants of a system never recorded in any historical document? A technology that existed briefly in Colchester and vanished without leaving written evidence. Whatever the truth, the mechanical traces buried underground continue to challenge every hypothesis. They remind us that Roman history in Britain is far from simple, and that some structures reveal their mysteries only after the world above them has completely faded away. Colchester was once a crossroads between Roman power and native tradition, and perhaps it was within that intersection that these unusual mechanisms came into existence. until a missing piece is found, a mechanical artifact, an ancient description, or another undiscovered foundation. The Colchester Roman circus vaults will remain one of the greatest engineering enigmas of Roman archaeology in Britain, where every buried brick poses the question, what truly operated here long ago? The Kinney's relief canals located in northern Iraq today are among the strangest and most debated constructions of the Assyrian Empire under King Sennacherib. This entire area includes channels carved into mountain slopes, stone aqueducts, cliff reliefs, and inscriptions that record the astonishing technical achievements the Assyrians carried out to bring water to the capital Nineveh. What makes Kinney's one of the most difficult ancient mysteries to decode lies in its extraordinary scale, unclear methods of material transportation, carvings that seem to surpass the technological capability of the era, and especially the almost mechanical precision of the stone-cut surfaces, something many believe could only be achieved using hardened metal tools or modern-like equipment. Observing Kinney's from afar, the whole area appears like a massive technical blueprint exposed within the landscape, combining architecture, hydraulics, ritual elements, and royal authority. Yet the closer one approaches, the more questions arise. What do you think the Assyrians used to create these perfectly sharp stone cuts? Was it a lost technology, or are we still missing a crucial piece of the puzzle? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Kinney's is first overwhelming in its time-defying scale. As part of a water delivery project stretching tens of kilometers to transform Nineveh into a garden city, the channels at Kinney's were carved directly into the mountainside, cut into long, flat, straight, deep segments, demonstrating a massive labor force and strategic coordination rarely seen in civilizations of that era. Sheer vertical rock faces were sliced across, as if by a giant saw blade, creating perfect planes. These smooth surfaces once functioned to direct water flow, regulate it, and distribute it to Nineveh's major structures. Yet to create flat surfaces stretching many meters, the Assyrians would have needed tools that were incredibly durable, sharp, and capable of sustaining vertical cutting stress. This is the starting point for countless debates spanning decades. Alongside scale, Kinney's is notable for its monumental reliefs carved directly into rock faces. They depict the king standing with deity's divine water being bestowed, and details related to the construction of the Grand Canal. Strangely, most of these reliefs are placed in extremely elevated, inaccessible positions, nearly impossible for ordinary people to view. So what was their purpose? Some theorize they commemorated the king's engineering achievements. Others believe they were sacred rites meant to sanctify the hydraulic system. Still others suggest they served as a kind of visual technical documentation. Regardless of intent, the appearance of such large carvings in such difficult locations remains an open question. In many sections of Kinney's Assyrian inscriptions, describe sophisticated technical procedures, how to design water flow, arrange gradients, reinforce stone walls, and create pressure control systems. These texts show that the Assyrians possessed remarkable hydraulic knowledge. Some descriptions even remind modern scholars of physical principles of fluid dynamics that science would only formalize millennia later. This has led many researchers to question the true technological level of Assyria. They may have understood hydraulic pressure, turbulence, and water dynamics in practical forms even without written theoretical frameworks. One of the greatest mysteries is how the Assyrians transported multi-ton stones used to build and reinforce the channels. No clear evidence exists that they possessed sophisticated lifting equipment. No pulleys, no cranes have been found, nor any direct descriptions of stone-moving mechanisms. Yet these stones were positioned precisely fitted, almost perfectly. This fuels speculation that they had practical engineering knowledge exceeding what archaeology has officially recognized. Another perplexing aspect is the system of hidden tunnels and channels beneath the main waterway. Many excavated areas reveal auxiliary tunnels, secret water conduits, and structures with unclear purposes, possibly pressure relief systems, flood management features, or rituals associated with water. These structures show that the designers not only understood engineering, but anticipated seasonal variations of water flow. Still, how these were built, over what time, and with what tools, remains unanswered. A particularly intriguing mystery arises from reliefs resembling gears or water-lifting devices. Many carvings look remarkably similar to mechanical components, strange, given that no evidence suggests Assyria had a developed mechanical engineering tradition. Some say these are symbolic, others believe they depict tools that have been lost to history. When combined with the extraordinary precision of the stone cuts, these theories become even more compelling. Additionally, some researchers note that several water grooves at Kinis align with the sunrise during the spring equinox. Is this coincidence? Or was Kinis not just a hydraulic system, but also a ceremonial astronomical site? This question remains unresolved, but opens an entirely new interpretive avenue, suggesting the Assyrians may have viewed water as a sacred element tied to cosmic cycles. When examined up close, the rock faces at Kinis reveal long planar cuts stretching meters with virtually no deviation, parallel grooves utterly consistent, and edges so sharp that even modern blades barely slide into them. Some cuts maintain straightness and flatness, with variations of only a few millimeters across their entire length. This is extraordinarily difficult to achieve using only bronze or primitive iron tools of the Assyrian period, metals that lacked the hardness required for such cutting, and which would wear down quickly. To create sharp, right-angled corners, the workers would need stable cutting force, high precision, and extremely durable tools. Many modern engineers remark that these surfaces look as if created by specialized metal saws or industrial grinders, tools the Assyrians certainly did not possess. Some scholars suggest that the Assyrians used abrasive sand combined with water to enhance cutting capacity, but this method typically produces rough surfaces, not the refined flatness seen at Kinis. The iron chisel theory is also dismissed because such tools would dull rapidly. Close examination reveals parallel grinding lines, a characteristic normally produced by high-hardness tools or mechanical devices with repeated linear motion. So what did Assyria use? Lost technology? Or have we underestimated their metallurgical abilities? The entire length of the channels maintains near constant straightness and flatness, showing this was not the work of a few master craftsmen, but of a coordinated engineering system following standardized procedures. This implies Assyria possessed measurement, alignment, orientation, and quality control methods far more advanced than previously believed. If they used only plumb lines and primitive rulers, how could they maintain such precision across long distances? Many researchers lean toward the idea that the Assyrians achieved exceptional manual craftsmanship refined over generations. Others argue that Sennacherib's court imposed strict engineering standards, forcing artisans to achieve unusually high precision. More ambitious interpretations even propose that Assyria may have possessed hard metal technology, perhaps close to steel, but that archaeological evidence has yet to be found or has been destroyed by time. Regardless of interpretation, one fact is undeniable. The cuts at Kinis astonish modern engineers. The edges are not only sharp, but appear to have been made by tool blades, with mechanical consistency. Close-up photographs reveal parallel grooves running straight like products of a milling machine. If this is true, then the technological level of Assyria has been vastly underestimated. Another mystery is the uniformity among various sites within the system. Stone cuts at Jerwan Maltay and Kainis share identical cutting styles, as though made using the same technique, the same set of tools, or even the same team. This raises the possibility of royal technical teams specializing in high-difficulty construction. But to operate such teams, one would expect organizational structures, training methods, documents, or standards, none of which have been discovered. The deeper researchers study the cuts, the stranger they become. No signs of trial and error. No incorrect cuts. No abandoned surfaces. No adjustments. All this suggests extraordinary confidence from the builders. This leads many to suspect they may have used a tool capable of following preset guides rather than relying solely on manual skill. If other aspects of this site impress us with scale, mysterious reliefs, and inscriptions describing advanced engineering, then these stone cuts force us to reconsider whether humanity has misunderstood Assyrian technology. Kainis is not just an ancient water channel, it is evidence of an engineering sophistication either forgotten or undervalued. And within those knife-sharp cuts lies the Assyrians' thousand-year-old secret still waiting for an answer. Helwan Necropolis is one of the largest ancient cemeteries of Egypt's pre-dynastic and early Old Kingdom periods, but what makes this place mysterious and truly unique is the appearance of the false doors, a form of architectural element with ritual, spiritual, and symbolic significance that remains only partially understood. As modern archaeology gradually uncovers layer after layer of Helwan's sediment and architectural structure, these false doors are no longer seen merely as decorative elements of stone tombs, but as clues hinting at a complex religious world. Ancient beliefs about the soul, rituals of communication between the living and the dead, and sculpting techniques far more advanced than what we have traditionally attributed to early Egyptians. And it is precisely this element, the strange, seemingly anachronistic carving technique, that stands at the center of much debate, raising the question, what kind of tools did ancient craftsmen use to create such unnaturally sharp, precise cuts beyond the expectations of their era? What do you think the ancient Egyptians used to create those impossibly sharp and precise carvings on the Helwan false doors? Share your thoughts in the comments below. From a distance, the false doors of Helwan may appear like simple carved reliefs, a door frame, vertical jambs, niches, and sometimes a panel bearing the name of the deceased. But upon closer inspection, the real peculiarity lies in their meaning repetition, odd distribution, and above all, the precision and refinement in every carved detail. All of these combine into a tapestry of unanswered questions. And it is precisely because no satisfactory answers currently exist that Helwan has become one of the least discussed yet most valuable ancient mysteries to study. In Egyptian archaeology, the concept of the false door refers to a carved depiction of a real door that cannot physically open. It exists solely for one purpose: to create a symbolic passageway for the soul of the deceased Ka in Helwan. The presence of these doors shows that early Egyptians believed the soul could move across symbolic boundaries, not through wooden doors or tomb entrances, but through flat stone surfaces where rituals and prayers took place. In many tombs, traces of libation liquid offerings still remain on the platforms before the false doors, wine milk oils, or ritual mixtures. This demonstrates that the false door was a communication point, a place where the living directed prayers to the dead and where the dead symbolically received offerings. It functioned like a two-way ritual, yet the mechanism of how it was believed to work from geometry and positioning to the structural layout remains a major unresolved question. One of the strangest features of the Helwan necropolis is that most false doors face east or northeast, aligning with the rising sun, and ancient Egyptian concepts of rebirth. And the repetition of this orientation across hundreds of structures shows it was not random, but a deliberate system reflecting a shared community belief. Yet this raises the question of who standardized such an orientation, because Helwan was the burial place of thousands of individuals across many generations, and maintaining the same directional convention for such a long period would require either a strong and unified belief structure, a priestly class, or group of craftsmen capable of preserving and transmitting technical knowledge, or perhaps a ritual framework we have not yet discovered. And this remarkable uniformity deepens the mystery by suggesting that the false doors may not have been mere symbolic carvings, but could have functioned as some kind of ritual device with principles and purposes still unknown to us. Normally, the identity of the deceased would be inscribed on a tomb stela or the lid of a coffin. But at Helwan, most essential information about the dead is concentrated on the false doors, from names and titles to invocations and lists of desired offerings, showing that early Egyptians regarded the false door as the most sacred position within the entire funerary structure, a place where the deceased could read, recognize, and connect with rituals, making it the true heart of the tomb, rather than the sarcophagus or burial chamber. And this creates a paradox by raising the question that if all crucial information was centered on the false door, then what was the actual role of the burial chamber? Who determined this architectural model, and what made Helwan so distinct compared to other cemeteries of the same era? Helwan contains more than 10,000 tombs, yet only a very small portion of them possess false doors, indicating that this was not a universal custom, but rather a ritual privilege reserved for individuals of status, authority, or families with exclusive ceremonial traditions. However, archaeology reveals a paradox in that many false doors belonged to individuals who were not particularly wealthy and whose tombs were relatively simple, while some high-status individuals had no false door at all, giving rise to the hypothesis that the false door may reflect a family-based belief system of exclusivity, or represent special ritual classes within the community, or even serve as a marker associated with professions tied to ceremonial roles, such as priests or craftsmen. And because no texts from this period directly explain the selection mechanism, the mystery of why only certain individuals were granted this privilege remains entirely unresolved to this day. The most debated point, and the very reason Helwan has become one of the great technical mysteries of the ancient world, lies in the false doors themselves. Because although they belong to a very early stage of Egyptian history, they possess cuts as sharp as if made by steel blades, deep grooves that are perfectly uniform, right angles of remarkable precision, surfaces smoothed to an unbelievable degree, and geometric proportions of astonishing balance. While historical evidence shows that Egyptians of this period only had soft, copper tools, which are entirely incapable of producing such accuracy when working with limestone. Therefore, the major question is what tools they actually used, and many hypotheses have been proposed, ranging from the idea that craftsmen may have used extremely hard stones, such as diorite, dolerite, or chert for carving and grinding, though this fails to explain the near-perfect uniformity of the grooves, to the theory that harder metal tools once existed but have not yet been discovered, even though no convincing evidence of steel or advanced alloys before the Middle Kingdom has been found. Another widely accepted hypothesis suggests they may have ground the stone using a mixture of fine mud and quartz sand, which has very high hardness, but this method is extremely slow and still unlikely to create such sharp, machine-straight cuts. From this, some archaeologists believe the Egyptians may have possessed a specialized set of tools for shaping, cutting, and finishing stone, but that this tool system has been lost, decayed, or has not yet been correctly identified, especially since the margin of error in some Helwan false doors is so minimal that similar precision only reappears in much later stone architecture. Most striking of all is that certain false doors contain grooves so deep and narrow that they could only have been produced by tools extraordinarily thin, hard and precise tools entirely absent from the known technological repertoire of Egypt at that time, leading many to question whether this carving technique truly belonged to the technological context of the era or whether we have underestimated the abilities and technical sophistication of ancient civilizations. Certain false doors feature channels or polished surfaces caused by repeated pouring of liquids. This demonstrates that communication rituals with the dead were not merely symbolic, but involved actual physical actions. The living stood before the door, recited prayers, poured offerings, and believed the dead would receive them through an invisible passageway. This raises other questions. If the ritual was so important, why did only certain individuals have false doors? Were they community ritual leaders, or was the false door a ritual instrument limited to specific families? During the Middle Kingdom period, false doors began to appear less frequently and eventually disappeared entirely from funerary architecture, indicating a major shift in religious structure, the role of the priesthood, and the way people believed they could communicate with the dead. The disappearance of a ritual once considered profoundly important remains difficult to explain, as no texts or records describe the reason for this transition, prompting scholars to propose various hypotheses. Some believe a quiet religious reform took place, while others think the tradition simply became obsolete. Yet even now, we still do not know exactly what caused the false door to vanish from the ritual life of ancient Egypt. The Helwan necropolis false doors are not mere carved door images. They are keys to an ancient spiritual worldview where Egyptians conceptualized the boundary between life and death, where ritual and technique intersected, and where questions still outnumber answers. What tools did ancient craftsmen use to carve such sharp, precise cuts that challenge modern archaeological assumptions? That question remains unanswered, and perhaps it is this lack of resolution that keeps Helwan alive among researchers as a mystery still beyond our full understanding. Monte Baranta, located on a high cliff overlooking the Fertilia Valley of Sardinia, is one of the most enigmatic and unusual prehistoric structures in Europe, where every stone block, every cut, and every empty space evokes unanswered questions. Although it is dated to the early Bronze Age, around 2400 to 1600 BC, its scale far exceeds what people once believed about the technical capabilities of the island's communities at that time. The first oddity of Monte Baranta is the existence of an enormous megalithic complex that astonishingly lacks any documents, legends, or local folklore referencing it. A structure built with high organizational skill, with thousands of tons of hard basalt transported, arranged, and shaped with care, yet it left no trace in the cultural memory of local inhabitants. This absolute silence of history makes Monte Baranta appear like a relic belonging to a vanished civilization or a group of people that emerged and disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind nothing but stone walls standing for thousands of years, against Mediterranean winds. Why do you think a massive structure like Monte Baranta disappeared from all legends and cultural memory of the people of Sardinia? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The most striking feature of the entire complex is the basalt wall, nearly 100 meters long, up to 5 meters high, and assembled from large stone blocks without any binding material. The wall has stood for 4 millennia without collapsing or suffering major deformation, demonstrating a level of masonry sophistication rarely seen among ancient builders. Although the stone surfaces are not perfectly smooth like those of some famous megalithic sites, they are uniform, tight-fitting, and clearly show signs of careful selection and preparation. But what most puzzles archaeologists, and what makes Monte Baranta stand out from other structures on the island, is the massive ditch carved directly into solid basalt bedrock. The ditch is as deep as 3.5 meters, more than 20 meters long, and has such sharp, clean cross-sections that it is almost unimaginable they were made with stone tools, primitive bronze or wood as used by prehistoric communities. Basalt is extremely hard, and even today creating a deep cut in basalt requires high-powered machinery or diamond-tipped tools. Yet 4,000 years ago, nameless people created a deep, straight, even ditch with clean-cut surfaces that experts still cannot agree on how they achieved. Some theories propose heating the rock and applying cold water to fracture it, but this only explains small fragments, not the deep, smooth, continuous faces seen at Monte Baranta. Other theories suggest stone hammers combined with concentrated manpower, but this would require an unrealistic amount of labor and time for a small, prehistoric community. There are also suggestions that the ditch was not defensive, but ceremonial, a sacred boundary. Yet whether for ritual or defense, the question remains, how did they cut so deeply into basalt? This is the core mystery of Monte Baranta, a technical feat far exceeding what is expected from a Bronze Age community in Sardinia. Even more intriguing is the positioning of the ditch relative to the wall. It lies just in front of it, but not perfectly parallel. It shifts slightly, subtly curved, as though intentionally guiding the viewer's gaze toward a specific area inside the complex. This has led some researchers to believe the ditch served not only functional or military purposes, but symbolic or ritual ones, perhaps marking the separation between the world of the living and the sacred realm. Yet archaeological evidence is insufficient to confirm any hypothesis, leaving the Monte Baranta ditch one of the most perplexing enigmas of the European Bronze Age. Beyond the ditch and wall lies a large arrangement of stones, forming a peculiar semicircular space, part gathering place, part ritual area, and partly reminiscent of primitive observational structures. The standing stones here are not fully smoothed, but have a degree of uniformity in size, suggesting that they were placed with intention, not randomly. However, no ritual artifacts have been found, no dense remains of animal bones typical of sacrificial sites, and no clear signs of offerings. Nothing is definitive enough to confirm this as a religious center. Another oddity is the absence of a corresponding residential area. Inside the complex, only a few faint foundations and scattered signs of occupation exist. There are no food storage areas, no communal structures, no large hearths. A place with walls, a defensive ditch, and a ritual circle, but almost no inhabitants, presents a major contradiction in determining its function. Was Monte Baranta used only for special events? Was it a gathering point for multiple tribal groups appearing only during significant seasonal or ritual activities? Or was it a sacred stronghold, accessible only to certain members of society? The deeper researchers dig, the more questions arise, and the fewer answers appear. Compared to the nuragic architecture, the hallmark of Sardinia during the later Bronze and Iron Ages, Monte Baranta becomes even more mysterious. The nuragic people were master stone builders, yet their structures differ entirely. Cone-shaped nurage towers, tall, stacked walls without bedrock-cut ditches, and ritual spaces with distinct designs. There is no evidence that Monte Baranta is a precursor to or directly related to the nuragic culture, making it seem like an isolated island in the cultural timeline of Sardinia. It is as if a brief but brilliant culture appeared and vanished, leaving behind a single structure that astonishes later generations. Not only its architecture, but also its location adds to the mystery. Built atop a high cliff, Monte Baranta commands a full view of the plains and coastline. If meant for defense, the location is ideal. But if ceremonial, why choose such a remote, difficult-to-access site instead of a flat, open area? Some archaeologists wonder whether it might have served as an early astronomical observation point, yet there is no convincing evidence of solar or lunar alignment like those in other European megalithic sites. The ambiguity between defense and ritual makes Monte Baranta impossible to classify into any traditional category. Ultimately, the greatest mystery, and the very feature that makes Monte Baranta one of the strangest ancient structures in Europe, is the deep ditch carved into basalt, hard as steel. A technique beyond the expected capabilities of Bronze Age people, a detail that weakens conventional theories and forces researchers to admit we still do not fully understand the technical knowledge and construction mindset of ancient communities. That ditch, with its straight cross-sections and implausible depth, is a living testament to a secret buried for 4,000 years. And even today, it remains a question with no answer. Who created it? What tools did they use? And what was the true purpose of Monte Baranta? Those questions continue to hover over the cliffs of Sardinia, awaiting a solution that may never come. The Capistrano warrior statue has long been one of the most puzzling mysteries in European archaeology, not only because its appearance differs from any artistic style of the same era, but also because numerous details suggest that the ancient craftsman possessed a level of technical mastery far beyond what history has traditionally acknowledged. The statue stands over 2 meters tall, greatly exceeding the average height of Italian inhabitants in the 6th century BC, causing many to wonder whether it portrays a superior warrior, a legendary figure, or simply a ceremonial symbol exaggerated to express authority. The accompanying armor and weapons do not belong to any Roman, Etruscan, or Greek tradition, forcing researchers to consider the possibility that the statue represents an independent culture, an artistic tradition never documented but once thriving before vanishing without a trace. Particularly striking is the large dish-shaped helmet covering the entire face, giving the statue the presence of an unidentified entity that seems both human and sacred. Even the posture, legs spread wide and arms pressed closely to the body, does not resemble combat stances or authoritative poses typical in ancient art, but instead suggests a ritualistic position, as if the statue was created to guard a sacred space or enact a forgotten ceremony no longer understood by the modern world. However, the most controversial aspect of the statue is its advanced craftsmanship, a level of refinement so exceptional that even Roman statues, often considered pinnacles of ancient art, struggled to match it. Up close, the surface of the statue reveals an astonishing smoothness without any trace of rough tool marks. The curves of the armor, the straps, the garment edges, and especially the helmet, are polished uniformly, displaying a seamless quality of stoneworking seemingly beyond the capabilities attributed to the ancient Vestini people. The carved cuts and grooves all maintain completely consistent depths, sharp as though crafted with a precise measuring instrument, something for which archaeology has found no evidence. The large curved surfaces of the armor, extremely difficult to execute in sandstone without leaving marks, reach a near mechanical perfection, leading many specialists to admit that the technique surpasses the limits of stone or bronze tools of that era. Some theories suggest that the artisans used sand polishing over extremely long periods, yet this method cannot account for the absolute uniformity across the statue's surface. Other theories propose the use of a geometric measuring system or a frame to ensure symmetry, but to this day, no tools or models belonging to the Vestini culture have been discovered that support such ideas. This raises an even more significant question. How could a small tribe with no known sculptural reputation create a work whose symmetry and smoothness surpass even masterpieces from centuries later? Was this technical knowledge lost? Did a sophisticated secret sculptural tradition once exist, leaving behind only this statue as evidence? Even the smallest details demonstrate incredible precision. The decorative lines on the straps and armor are carved with evenly distributed density and no variation in depth, revealing extremely stable craftsmanship and exceptionally sharp tools. The weapons accompanying the statue also possess perfect symmetry, a rarity in early Central Italian art. Measurements taken with modern laser technology show near-perfect balance between the two halves of the statue, from the tilt of the shoulders to the slight curvature of the armor's edge. Even the large, rounded surfaces, such as the cylindrical chest armor, exhibit an almost perfectly uniform radius, something that astonishes stoneworking researchers, as achieving this would require a rotational tool system or a circular grinding technique entirely absent from historical records. Some more daring assumptions propose that the Vestini may have used a type of proto-mechanical device, but this remains speculative since no archaeological evidence supports such a possibility. In addition, the inscription carved onto the statue, written in the Osco-Umbrian language, although readable, still cannot be fully interpreted. The name Nerfe or Nerfalo could refer to the warrior, the sculptor, a clan name, or simply a religious title. This uncertainty makes the statue feel both familiar and foreign, both real and mythical. When the statue was excavated alongside real armor fragments in the Capistrano burial site, many believed it to be the tomb marker of a legendary warrior. Yet others argued that its size and craftsmanship far exceed what a typical tomb would require, suggesting it may once have served as a symbol in a major ritual or stood in a sacred place before eventually being buried. All of these factors lead to a much larger hypothesis. Are we underestimating the technical capabilities of pre-Roman communities? Could they have possessed stoneworking knowledge that history has forgotten? The Capistrano statue, with its nearly flawless smoothness and perfect symmetry, is not merely an artistic creation, but a piece of evidence challenging everything we believe about the abilities of ancient civilizations. It stands like a fragment of an unwritten chapter of history, hinting that there once existed anonymous artisans with mastery far beyond their time. And this statue, solitary yet extraordinary, reminds us that the mysteries of the ancient world are not beyond understanding. They lie right before us, waiting to be decoded. What do you think about the possibility that an advanced stoneworking technique may have been lost to history? Could the Capistrano warrior be evidence of an unwritten chapter of the ancient world? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Inga stone carvings, Brazil, also known as the Inga rock engravings, have long been regarded as one of the most enigmatic archaeological mysteries in South America, not only because of the dense concentration of symbols carved across its surface, but also because of the level of technical sophistication that far surpasses what is believed to have been possible for ancient indigenous cultures in the region. Stretching nearly 250 meters, with countless symbols, drawings, grooves, and geometric motifs, this rock resembles an ancient stone book, preserving long-lost messages. What perplexes researchers is that despite numerous traces of symbolic thinking, astronomy, abstract geometry, and organized labor, there is no concrete evidence identifying who actually created these carvings when they lived, or what purpose these engravings served. Yet above all mysteries, the most fiercely debated element is the set of ultra-precise carvings, sharp, perfectly straight, and astonishingly consistent, leading many to compare them to cuts made by hardened metal tools or even modern laser-like technology completely beyond the capability of traditional stone tools. In your opinion, what could have created the razor-sharp, perfectly straight carvings on the Inga stone, ancient techniques, or a lost form of knowledge? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When examined directly or through high-quality images, the first striking feature is the depth of the carved grooves. They appear almost perfectly uniform from one end to the other, without the fluctuations typically seen in hand-carved work. The surfaces of the grooves are unusually flat and smooth. If stone tools had been used to strike the rock, the vibrations and repeated impacts would have produced cracks, striations, or chips. Instead, the Inga rock displays a level of material handling that is extraordinarily stable and precise. Many areas show straight lines stretching for meters while maintaining near-perfect linearity, no curvature deviation or waviness. This forces geologists, archaeologists, and materials engineers to ask a critical question. How could ancient people have worked on granite, one of the hardest natural stones, and carved such refined markings? Several studies comparing the hardness of the Inga rock with nearby quarries suggest that the stone here ranks between 6 and 7 on the Mohs scale. At such hardness, a stone tool would quickly dull or break after only a few strong blows. Yet the grooves show no evidence of inconsistent force or tool degradation. Instead, they look as though they were made by a process applying steady, continuous pressure. This has led to the theory that the creators of the Inga stone carvings may have used metal tools or even hard alloys. However, archaeology has found no indication that any culture in this region had the capability to produce or use metal tools of such sophistication at the time the carvings were made. This contradiction lies at the heart of ongoing debates, deepening the mystery even further. Beyond the straight cuts, many geometric motifs on the Inga rock reveal astonishing repetition and symmetry. Spirals, concentric circles, patterns resembling electronic circuits, wave-like symbols, or orbital pathways appear to follow a consistent internal logic. When analyzed using geometric modeling software, many segments align along straight axes or correspond to fundamental geometric ratios, isosceles triangles, parallelograms, or golden ratio structures. The idea that ancient people created these shapes randomly is nearly impossible. Such precision implies a relatively advanced mathematical understanding, or at least a highly systematic approach to design. Among the carvings, many symbols are thought to represent constellations, such as Orion or the Pleiades, as well as astronomical structures related to lunar and solar movement. Some astronomers argue that if the rock was carved based on long-term sky observations, it may represent an ancient astronomical calendar used for agriculture or rituals. Yet again, the obstacle lies in the precision of the cuts. Even if the ancients could observe the stars with the naked eye, translating those observations into perfectly straight grooves on granite is an entirely different challenge. It would require measurement tools, cutting instruments, stabilization techniques, and fine control of applied force, none of which are known to have existed in regional cultures of that era. Some scholars supporting astronomical interpretations believe the symbols may depict solar or lunar eclipses or long-cycle celestial movements. If true, the Ingar rock would not merely be an artistic creation, but a complex recording system, reflecting extensive observation of the universe, suggesting that its creators possessed advanced knowledge. However, the extraordinary sharpness of the grooves raises further questions. If the purpose was only to record celestial phenomena, such perfect cutting would not have been necessary. This leads many to speculate that the true intention may involve ritual use, coded communication, or some form of specialized knowledge system that modern humans have yet to understand. Several symbols, resembling circuitry pipes, compartments, or schematic diagrams, appear in various sections of the stone. While many scientists argue that such interpretations are merely modern projections, the geometric precision and organization of these motifs are difficult to dismiss as coincidence. Some unconventional researchers hypothesize that the creators of the Inga stone may have possessed access to technologies or knowledge from a vanished civilization or from groups of migrants who left no other trace besides this enigmatic monument. The scale of the rock further amplifies its mystery. Engraving hundreds of symbols with uniform depth and sharpness over such a vast surface would require skilled workers, specialized tools, organized labor, and a clear purpose. Yet archaeology has uncovered no substantial settlements or cultural centers near the Ingar region. It is as though the people who created this monument appeared momentarily completed their work and vanished without leaving further evidence. Indigenous groups in Brazil preserve numerous legends about the rock, suggesting it is where ancestors received knowledge from beings who came from the sky or where divine messages were recorded. Although mythic in tone, these stories reflect humanity's difficulty in explaining the techniques behind the Ingar carvings. Ultimately, despite countless hypotheses from archaeology, linguistics, astronomy, and materials science, the greatest mystery remains the ultra-precise grooves, hard as steel, straight as laser beams. Their technical impossibility is what elevates the Ingar rock into a uniquely enigmatic Brazilian heritage site, not only a testament to the creativity of ancient humans, but also a reminder that history may contain chapters we still lack the knowledge to interpret. The Inga stone carvings stand as a direct challenge to conventional explanations, prompting us to question whether we have truly understood the capabilities of ancient civilizations, or whether lost knowledge once existed, now preserved only in razor-sharp stone lines, straight and enigmatic, like streaks of misplaced light across time. The Jomon flame pottery, or cane doki, emerged during the Middle Jomon period and stands as one of the ancient creations that astonish modern archaeologists due to its extraordinary creativity, complexity in design, and especially its level of craftsmanship that far surpasses what is believed to be possible for a hunter-gatherer society. When observing these flame-rimmed vessels, one is easily reminded of blazing flames fossilized in clay with tall spirals, intricate protrusions, bold swirling lines, and a level of fluidity so striking that it seems as though they were crafted with tools far more advanced than what the Jomon people are believed to have had. This very shape presents a major mystery How could a prehistoric community, without metal, without the wheel, without modern kilns, create such artistically and technically sophisticated forms without causing collapse, distortion, or cracking during firing? This irrationality has sparked academic debates for decades and marks the beginning of the journey to uncover the secrets hidden beneath these ancient clay forms. What do you think allowed the Jomon people to create such impossibly complex, flame-shaped pottery designs? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Jomon pottery appeared extremely early in the Jomon period, around 15,000 years ago. Jomon pottery appeared extremely early, possibly more than 14 millennia ago, making them one of the first communities on Earth to develop pottery-making techniques. This is astonishing because most ancient pottery traditions emerged only after the rise of agriculture and settled societies, while the Jomon still lived as hunter-gatherers. The fact that such a society developed an artistic form so refined and nearly illogical raises the question of whether their pottery techniques were merely practical skills or the result of a sophisticated mindset imbued with symbolism and spirituality. The swirling motifs on the pottery surface, sometimes resembling animals, plants, water, or fire, lead many researchers to believe that these vessels were not simply utilitarian objects, but ceremonial items containing stories, beliefs, or symbolic systems of the Jomon people. However, this ceremonial nature deepens the mystery. If they were not used for cooking or daily storage, then what was their true function? Could they have symbolized tribal authority, served as tools in seasonal rituals, or were they offerings meant to connect humans and the spiritual world? To this day, no hypothesis has been definitively confirmed, making Jomon flame pottery a true cultural enigma. Yet what astonishes archaeologists most is the extraordinary level of craftsmanship, the most crucial highlight in the study of Kayendoki. Despite lacking metal tools, the Jomon were able to create extremely thin, tall, wax-like, flexible details that remained sturdy throughout shaping and firing. They used the coil method common in prehistoric pottery, but elevated it to a nearly unbelievable level of refinement. Clay coils were bonded by compressing, smoothing, layering, and carving with millimeter precision. Attaching multiple ridges, fins, and flame-shaped protrusions onto the rim, while maintaining structural balance and preventing collapse during drying or firing, provides clear evidence that they possessed a deep understanding of clay properties, moisture, ideal thickness, and firing processes. The firing stage adds even more mystery. Without enclosed kilns, like later civilizations, the Jomon relied only on fire pits or open firing structures. Yet they achieved stable temperatures high enough to harden the pottery, but not so intense as to destroy delicate details. This forces scholars to ask, did the Jomon possess methods of fire control more advanced than previously believed? Did they use special materials to regulate heat, or did they hold some firing secret now lost to history? With no written records, no extended tradition of pottery workshops, only surviving artifacts serve as evidence of a level of craftsmanship so refined that it seems unbelievable for such an ancient era. Across numerous reconstruction experiments by archaeologists and modern artisans, recreating an authentic Jomon flame vessel has proven extremely difficult. Most replicas collapse at the flame ridges, crack during firing, or fail to achieve the living quality characteristic of true Jomon pieces. Some research teams had to attempt dozens of trials before producing a somewhat stable result, further demonstrating that the Jomon possessed a subtle mastery of clay working that modern science cannot yet fully quantify. Beyond technique, the distinctive aesthetics of Jomon flame pottery convince many scholars that these artifacts are products not only of manual skill, but of extraordinary imagination. The The swirling forms often resemble whirlpools, flames in motion, or complex organic geometries. Strikingly, they do not follow any known motif seen in other ancient pottery cultures worldwide. This uniqueness suggests that the Jomon possessed an entirely separate aesthetic worldview. Some even compare it to abstract modern art. Some researchers propose that the patterns reflect natural forces, expressing the relationship between humans and their environment, a defining philosophical trait of Jomon culture. The absolute uniqueness of Kain-doki has led many scholars to question possible cultural exchanges. Jomon flame pottery resembles neither Chinese pottery, Siberian pottery, nor any prehistoric pottery style from East Asia. This suggests that the Jomon may have developed their artistic tradition independently without outside influence, or that if such influence existed, its source completely vanished before recorded history. This isolation enhances the mystery of Kain-doki, presenting it as a self-contained world of thought with an aesthetic philosophy no longer preserved in any modern culture. Even when exploring the symbolic aspect, scholars cannot decipher the true meanings behind the decorative elements. Some believe they represent tribal markers. Others see them as a form of visual language. Still others think they depict mythical beings from Jomon belief systems. Without definitive evidence, the flame pottery remains an ancient code waiting to be interpreted. All of these elements, the illogical form, mysterious function, unique aesthetics, and especially the unprecedented level of craftsmanship, have made the Jomon flame pottery one of the most significant prehistoric legacies of Japan. It proves that hunter-gatherer communities were not simple or primitive, as often portrayed by traditional cultural evolution models. Kain-doki stands as a message from the past, reminding us that human creativity and technical brilliance can emerge at any point in history even without agriculture metal or written records, only hands, minds, and boundless imagination. The Lamanai mask, temple facade, has always been regarded as one of the most mysterious architectural symbols of the Maya civilization, not only because of its long lifespan across multiple developmental phases, but also because of the appearance of enormous stone masks whose size and precision far exceed what one would expect from ancient Maya carving technology. Two masks, nearly 5 meters tall, carved directly into the temple facade, have become the focus of all archaeological research at Lamanai. What makes them mysterious is not only their majestic appearance, but also the question how, with tools made primarily of stone and wood, could the Maya create mask structures with sharp cuts, even surfaces, deep angles, and symmetry so perfect that they surpassed the predicted capabilities of a civilization that did not use hard metals like iron or steel. Upon close observation, the flat surfaces appear as if polished with straight molds. The deep cuts are astonishingly uniform, and the details do not deviate even by a few millimeters, prompting archaeologists to question whether the Maya possessed a construction or carving technique that we have not yet rediscovered. In many ancient civilizations, large statues or reliefs were often crafted from separate stone blocks and then assembled into a structure, but at Lamanai, the entire masks were carved directly onto the exterior of the pyramid, meaning artisans had to work on a vertical or steeply sloped surface at significant height, requiring scaffolding systems, pulleys, or complex support mechanisms. However, no complete evidence of such construction systems has been found. This raises the hypothesis that the Maya used construction techniques involving compressed earthwood or other organic materials that did not survive over time, or that they had a method of labor organization and measurement far beyond what we imagine. The impossibility lies in the fact that if the masks were misaligned by even a small degree during construction, the entire facade would be skewed, yet the actual symmetry is nearly perfect. This precision evokes comparisons with Egyptian or Tiwanaku structures, where multi-ton stones were fitted with astonishing accuracy, leading many researchers to question whether the ancient Maya possessed a form of geometric reasoning or astronomical measurement method far more sophisticated than what current records suggest. What do you think the Maya used to create such impossibly precise, colossal masks? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Beyond their impossible size, the meaning of the masks is also a mystery. The carved faces possess hybrid characteristics between human and deity, not entirely similar to any known Maya artistic style. Some scholars believe they depicted Samnaj, the creator god in Maya mythology. Others recognize solar symbolism or royal power indicators, suggesting these might be portraits of kings deified through ritual. However, the stylistic mixture from the shape of the eyes to the nose and mouth shows influence from an external culture or a complex religious transition that we still do not fully understand. This becomes even stranger, knowing that Lamanai existed continuously for more than 3 millennia longer than most Maya cities, meaning its architecture underwent many phases, yet still preserved the original mask facade as an irreplaceable symbol. What compelled later generations to respect and continue preserving these giant faces? Perhaps they held ritual, astronomical, or political power that transcended the changes of dynasties. The mystery deepens as surveys reveal that the masked temple facade contains many overlapping construction phases, as though later generations wanted both to preserve the old symbol and to conceal or modify parts of it. Some sections of the masks were covered with new plaster, while other areas were expanded, detailed further, or altered stylistically. This has led archaeologists to ask whether a ritual intention existed, such as renewing symbols of power, revitalizing deities, or redefining the original meaning of the structure. Some theories even suggest that behind the layers of plaster lie small chambers used for rituals in which the Maya conducted ceremonies related to the sun, ancestral spirits, or astronomical cycles. Although no definitive evidence has been found, these overlapping architectural layers act like a temporal code, making the masked temple one of the most historically rich and hardest to decipher structures in the ancient world. Looking more broadly, the location of the temple increases the facade's mystery. Built on a high, steep platform overlooking New River Lagoon, the placement was likely intentional for rituals involving sunrise and sunset. The remarkable point is that to carve such colossal masks on a steep slope, artisans needed extremely precise techniques for fixing designs, marking proportions, and measuring angles. No existing document explains how they built scaffolds capable of supporting dozens of stone carvers and tools for months. Though Maya inscriptions mention basic mathematical concepts, there is no direct evidence showing they used measurement tools accurate enough to create meter-long flat surfaces on a vertical rock face. Yet the undeniable fact remains: the masks were successfully carved and with almost no signs of trial and error. Many modern researchers have observed that the angular features of the masks correspond to certain markers in the Maya solar cycle. This suggests that the facade may not have been merely decorative or religious, but may have functioned as a stone astronomical calendar. On specific days of the year, sunlight shines into niches and carved lines in a distinctive way, similar to structures built to mark ritual dates. If true, this proves that the Maya had extremely advanced astronomical knowledge enough to design the facade to align with seasonal sunlight for centuries. However, The complexity of the details, along with the temple's renovations across generations, makes determining the original purpose profoundly challenging. Another factor that makes the Mast Temple exceptional is how it reflects the longevity of Lamani as a city lasting more than 3 millennia. While many Maya cities collapsed by the end of the Classic period, Lamani continued to develop, adapt, and sustain its religious practices. This made the masks a timeless symbol, accumulating layers of cultural and ritual reinterpretation while still preserving their original essence. These stratified meanings turn the facade into an architectural manuscript spanning centuries, both clear and ambiguous, both direct and cryptic. And finally, the greatest mystery, and the one that draws every observer's attention, is the question: why did the Maya create such impossibly large masks? If they were ritual statues, why make them so enormous that teams of artisans had to work for months on a sheer vertical surface? If they represented royal authority, why not opt for easier methods, such as assembling smaller stone blocks? If they functioned as astronomical instruments, was it necessary to carve complex, divine faces? All questions remain open, and it is this very uncertainty that makes the Mast Temple one of the most enigmatic structures of the Maya world. A monument that reveals, the more we study it, how much modern civilization still has yet to understand about the gap between archaeological reality and the extraordinary creative abilities of ancient humanity. Throughout all of ancient history, few civilizations appear so frequently in written records, yet remain completely invisible on the archaeological map, like the Kingdom of Punt, a land the Egyptians reverently called Ta Netja, meaning the land of the gods. The greatest mystery, and the topic that has fueled centuries of scholarly debate, is the question: where exactly was Punt located? No ancient map identifies its position. No confirmed archaeological site belongs to it. No ruins of cities, no monumental structures, not even distinctive pottery or tools can be reliably traced to this kingdom. Everything modern humans know comes from Egyptian records, their descriptions of trade and temple reliefs illustrating precious goods. Yet none provide a clear geographical location. This mystery has become one of archaeology's greatest puzzles. How could a civilization that existed for millennia and maintained long-term trade with Egypt vanish without leaving a trace? Where do you think the Kingdom of Punt was truly located? Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Yemen, or perhaps an entirely unknown land we have yet to discover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When studying Punt, historians are immediately struck by the contradiction between its importance and the scarcity of information about it. The ancient Egyptians regarded Punt as the source of sacred materials, most notably myrrh, used in religious rituals, ebony, wood, gold, leopards, baboons, and many other luxury goods. A land supplying such essential resources should logically stand out on ancient trade maps, yet its location has never been definitively identified. Egyptian texts only mention traveling by ship to Punt, reaching the sacred land to the south, or crossing the waters of the goddess Hathor. All of these descriptions are frustratingly vague. No coordinates, no distances, no descriptions of landmarks, leaving modern archaeology with no concrete path to follow. Theories about Punt's location stretch across the Horn of Africa, Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and even Yemen or the Sudanese coast. Each region shows certain similarities with Egyptian descriptions, yet all lack decisive archaeological evidence. Somalia and Eritrea border the Red Sea, fitting the idea of sailing to Punt. Ethiopia has species of animals depicted in Egyptian reliefs. Yemen lies along ancient trade routes, but none offer ruins or artifacts conclusively linked to Punt. Some scholars even question whether Punt was a single kingdom at all, proposing instead that it might have been a wide region inhabited by multiple coastal and inland tribes. Others suggest Punt may have shifted locations over time or functioned as a mobile trade network rather than a centralized state with fixed borders. Despite the ambiguity of its location, Punt played a remarkably important role in Egyptian diplomacy. Strangely, the Egyptians recorded trade with Punt for more than a millennium. Yet they did not describe its social structure, urban centers, or political system. A relationship lasting so long should have produced extensive documentation, but surviving records consist mainly of trade lists and temple depictions. This absence of detail intensifies the mystery of Punt's location. A land so important could not simply remain archaeologically invisible unless its communities had unusual social structures built with easily degradable materials or existed in regions that modern excavations have not yet uncovered. The most famous expedition to Punt during the reign of Queen Hatshepsut left richly detailed reliefs at Deir el-Bahari. Yet these images complicate the mystery further. The reliefs depict stilt houses implying Punt may have been a coastal or swampy region. The animals, plants, and clothing all reflect distinct East African characteristics. But the reliefs do not provide maps, travel routes, or geographical markers, making locating Punt nearly impossible. Even the portrayal of Punt's King Parahu and Queen Ati has sparked debate. Their unusual physical features raise questions about whether the reliefs represent true ethnic traits or stylized Egyptian symbolism. Modern research attempts to solve the mystery using scientific methods such as DNA analysis of mummified baboons imported from Punt. Findings show that these animals originated from East Africa, particularly regions along the Red Sea. This supports theories placing Punt in Somalia, Eritrea, or Ethiopia. However, while DNA can indicate where animals were sourced, it still cannot pinpoint the exact location of Punt's settlements, since the animals could have been acquired through trade networks rather than directly from the kingdom's core. Thus, even with scientific advances, the mystery remains unsolved. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect is Punt's deep religious significance. Egyptians believed it to be the homeland of the goddess Hathor and a sacred land connected to their own cultural origins. Some modern studies propose that the Egyptians may have ancestral ties to the Horn of Africa, and Punt represents a cultural memory of that primeval homeland. If so, this could explain why its location was not explicitly recorded. Sacred places were often described symbolically rather than geographically. Such a land might be considered divine, rather than a mere political entity, further distancing it from conventional mapping. Yet regardless of how many theories are proposed, one undeniable fact remains: Punt vanished from history in a strange and complete manner. After the first millennium BCE, the name Punt disappears entirely from the records. No evidence of war, no natural disasters, no signs of mass migration. The kingdom faded, as if it had never existed, leaving a geographical void humanity has yet to fill. And this void has turned Punt into one of the most enigmatic civilizations ever documented, simultaneously real and mythical, familiar in texts, yet unreachable on maps. In conclusion, the greatest mystery of the Kingdom of Punt is not merely its unusual wealth or sacred role, but the question that has gone unanswered for thousands of years: where was Punt really located? A civilization so important, yet invisible, recorded, yet undiscovered. This is what makes Punt one of the greatest ancient enigmas in all of human history. The Shimao Pyramid Complex stands as one of the most extraordinary and perplexing archaeological discoveries in East Asia, a colossal stone-built metropolis that predates many well-known civilizations, yet vanished completely from historical memory. Emerging around 2300 BCE and covering nearly 400 hectares, Shimao was not a minor settlement, but a massive urban ceremonial center with a 70-meter stepped pyramid, palatial districts, ritual platforms, defensive ramparts, and a unique artistic tradition that bears little resemblance to the early cultures commonly associated with ancient China. What makes Shimao so astonishing is not only its size and age, but the fact that no ancient text, Chinese or foreign, ever mentioned it. A city powerful enough to construct a gigantic stone complex rivaling the earliest pyramids of Egypt should have been impossible to ignore, yet it remained completely absent from historical consciousness until its rediscovery in the 21st century. Its identity, its rulers, and even its original name are all unknown. In your opinion, what could have caused a massive stone megacity like Shimao to disappear completely from all historical records? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As excavations expanded, archaeologists quickly realized they were dealing with a civilization far more sophisticated than previously imagined. At the heart of this mysterious city stands the Shimao Pyramid, a monumental structure of more than 10 terraces carved directly into a rocky hillside. Unlike the rammed earth traditions characteristic of early northern China, Shimao was built with massive stone blocks, meticulously shaped, tightly fitted, and arranged into ascending platforms that supported ceremonial halls and elite residences. The architectural decision to use stone on such an unprecedented scale challenges long-held assumptions about technological development in East Asia. But even more enigmatic is the city surrounding it, a sprawling urban zone filled with workshops, ritual enclosures, plazas, and layers of cultural material that suggest Shimao was once a thriving hub of political and religious authority. Its people created hundreds of elaborate stone masks, carved geometric motifs into the fortress walls, and practiced complex rituals that included large-scale foundation sacrifices, most notably the remains of more than 80 young women placed beneath defensive walls, a gesture that seems both ceremonial and apotropaic. Yet despite these dramatic features, the artistic style of Shimao does not match that of any contemporaneous culture in the Yellow River Basin. Instead, its imagery resembles that of steppe groups and Guamar Western traditions, implying that Shimao was perhaps a crossroads of multiple cultural zones, a powerful cosmopolitan center that played a major role in shaping early East Asian civilization. Among all the mysteries of Shimao, however, none is as technically astonishing and historically disruptive as the city's stone construction techniques, especially the intricate defensive systems built into its walls. This is where Shimao truly defies explanation. The fortifications exhibit engineering knowledge that appears centuries ahead of its time. Rather than simple stacked stones, the walls employ interlocking corner joints, precision-cut blocks, and engineered slots designed to absorb impact from battering and sabotage. Some sections reveal a sophisticated L-shaped joinery system that locks blocks together in ways similar to later imperial stonework, even though Shimao predates those achievements by nearly 2,000 years. The complexity suggests not only advanced architectural planning, but an understanding of structural mechanics and military strategy remarkable for a civilization once assumed to be proto-urban. In addition to these joints, the walls incorporate hidden kill zones, narrow corridors, false entrances, and elevated sniper platforms, features normally associated with walled cities of much later periods. The city planners deliberately created zones where intruders would be funneled into tight spaces, exposed from multiple angles, or trapped between layered walls. The sheer intentionality of these defenses indicates that Shimao was not merely a ceremonial site, but a heavily militarized stronghold capable of withstanding organized warfare. And yet no written record exists to suggest who their enemies were, what threats they anticipated, or how a stone-fortified metropolis of this magnitude emerged in a region previously believed to be less developed. The precision of the stonework further deepens the enigma. Many blocks were quarried off-site, transported over long distances, and shaped with expert consistency. Tool marks show controlled percussion and stone chiseling techniques so refined that they rival the craftsmanship of much later dynasties. Some walls still stand remarkably intact after more than 4,000 years, demonstrating not only durability, but intentional engineering choices aimed at resisting erosion collapse and thermal expansion. It is as if the builders understood advanced masonry principles far earlier than expected, raising uncomfortable questions about the technological trajectory of prehistoric China. Beyond its defensive architecture, Shimao also yields exotic materials, nephrite jade, transported from mountain regions hundreds of kilometers away, ivory and tortoise shells of non-local origin, and rare forms of pigment and mineral. These materials suggest extensive trade networks or political alliances, contradicting the assumption that early northern settlements were isolated. A city with such broad connections should have left a profound cultural legacy, and yet Shimao disappeared abruptly around 1800 BCE. Climate change may have transformed the region from fertile grasslands into drought-stricken desert. Warfare with rising polities to the south may have contributed to the collapse. Resource exhaustion may have destabilized the population, or some sudden catastrophic event may have forced mass abandonment. But the truth remains elusive. No sign of gradual decline has been found, only the eerie silence of a once thriving metropolis that emptied almost overnight. This abrupt disappearance, combined with the absence of writing lineage records or later folk memory, creates a historical vacuum rarely seen at such scale. Archaeologists are left to reconstruct the identity of a lost civilization using only stone bone and architectural logic. It raises the unsettling possibility that other advanced cultures flourished in prehistoric East Asia only to vanish without influencing the recorded traditions of the region. The rediscovery of Shimao therefore reshapes our understanding of early civilization. It suggests that the development of urban complexity, monumental architecture, and military engineering in East Asia did not originate solely along the Yellow River, nor did they progress linearly, according to established academic models. Shimao stands as evidence of an alternative trajectory, a forgotten pathway of innovation in which stone architecture, defensive science, and ritual authority combined to produce a powerful, enigmatic society with skills comparable to its global contemporaries. And nowhere is this more evident than in the city's defensive walls, whose construction techniques remain the most perplexing aspect of the entire complex. They are not only ahead of their time, they challenge the very chronology of technological evolution. If a 4,000-year-old city possessed such advanced military engineering, what other capabilities might this lost civilization have held? What knowledge was developed, mastered, and then erased by the sands of time? The Shimao Pyramid Complex, with its astonishing stone fortifications, stands as a silent monument to a forgotten world, one that forces us to question how much of ancient history remains unknowingly buried beneath the surface, waiting to overturn everything we think we understand about the origins of human civilization. The Judaculla rock petroglyph enigma has long been regarded as one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of North America. A massive boulder, covered with nonlinear symbols, spirals, long grooves, handprints, footprints, and countless abstract shapes that no one has been able to clearly interpret. Located in North Carolina, Judaculla rock stands out not only for its large size, but also for the astonishing density of more than 1,500 carved symbols, prompting many researchers to call it the densest ancient record in the eastern United States. Yet the deeper scholars investigate, the more they realize they are facing layers upon layers of mystery from which era the rock originated, who carved it, what message they intended to convey, and most importantly, what tools they used to achieve such remarkable sharpness and depth. Evidence suggests that the rock was carved over many generations, at least from 500 BCE to the 17th century. But because the stone itself cannot be carbon dated, archaeologists can only rely on stylistic comparisons with nearby sites. However, even those assumptions remain insufficient to decode the entirety of the carvings. Some symbols overlap one another, while others lie isolated as if marking a significant event. Stranger still, many carvings share consistent geometric patterns, suggesting the work of a single group or a particular technical tradition, yet the level of refinement far surpasses that of typical prehistoric tools. What do you think truly explains the sharp and complex carvings on Judaculla rock, lost technology, or something even more mysterious? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Cherokee people have long regarded Judaculla rock as part of their ancestral mythology. The rock is connected to Tzul'kalu', a giant spirit whom the indigenous people considered a supernatural being, governing the mountains and forests. Legend says that the seven-fingered handprint on the stone is Judaculla's mark, left when he leaped from a mountain peak and placed his hand on the rock to steady himself. Strangely, the rock surface does indeed feature shapes resembling seven-fingered hands, causing many to wonder whether this was a ceremonial imprint or a coincidence. Whether legend or truth, the presence of these unusual symbols has made the site a focal point of debates about ancient beliefs, cosmology, and the astronomical knowledge of early peoples. One reason Judaculla rock has become one of the most difficult coded walls to decipher is the sheer variety of its carvings. Some shapes appear to depict topographical features with long grooves resembling rivers and concentric circles suggesting gathering points. Others resemble ceremonial symbols reminiscent of shamanic languages or sign systems transmitted only within tribal communities. There are theories proposing that the rock records hunting routes, migration paths, or the visual history of an entire community. Yet none offers a fully convincing explanation. Every time researchers think they have found a key to interpretation, another symbol raises new questions. The repeated patterns groups of 3 groups of 7 or sequences of concentric circles lead some scholars to speculate about the existence of an ancient coded system, perhaps a proto-language or a lost theological symbol set. But all attempts at decipherment remain purely speculative. And then comes the greatest mystery, one that elevates Judaculla rock into a truly perplexing archaeological phenomenon: the unusually deep carved grooves with cuts so sharp that they do not match the technology of prehistoric peoples in the eastern United States. These grooves have remarkably uniform depth, smooth surfaces, and straight lines, as if made by a sharp, highly controlled tool. The puzzling question is, at a time when indigenous people mainly used stone bone and wood tools, how could they have created grooves as straight as those cut by metal? Some grooves are so deep that it is hard to believe they were formed solely by abrasion. Under sunlight, the engravings display a smoothness suggesting they were made by a knife-like blade or a high-speed rotary tool. Yet such technology did not exist in this region at the time. Some archaeologists even compare the marks to cuts made by modern metal saws on soft stone. This raises a series of questions. Did ancient people possess techniques we have not yet discovered? Did they interact with a civilization that had more advanced tools? Or perhaps the boldest hypothesis, are we underestimating the ingenuity and persistence of ancient peoples who may have developed heating, tempering, or pressure techniques so advanced that modern science has yet to recognize them? When examined with 3D scanning technology, some grooves were found to run parallel with deviations of only a few millimeters, something almost impossible to achieve using only chipped stone tools. Some grooves appear to have been made in continuous motion without interruption, revealing that the carver had stable technique and tools sharp enough to avoid chipping, an extremely rare trait among petroglyphs of this era. This has led to theories about a lost tradition of stone carving technology or the existence of a specialized artisan group serving important ceremonial or theological purposes. Yet regardless of which theory is correct, the precision of Judaculla rock's deep grooves remains a historical paradox, one that complicates our understanding of prehistoric craftsmanship. What makes the grooves even more astonishing is that they were carved into soft sandstone, a material that erodes easily and also fractures easily when subjected to uneven pressure. To carve deep lines without breaking the stone, ancient artisans must have had an intimate understanding of the material, knowing how to distribute force, adjust pressure, and angle their tools precisely. This indicates not only advanced tools, but also refined carving techniques far beyond common assumptions. Some experts suggest that the ancients may have used water heat or surface softening methods to ease carving. Yet modern experiments show that such methods produce rough surfaces, not the sharp, clean lines found on the rock. While the grooves continue to provoke debate about ancient technology, the symbols themselves hold their own mysteries. Some resemble star maps, others fish humans or ceremonial pathways. Many symbols interconnect like pieces of a narrative attempting to be told through imagery, but the storyteller is long gone. Today, Judaculla rock remains like an open book whose script has vanished. A new concern now overshadows the old mysteries. The rock is eroding rapidly. Soft sandstone cannot withstand moisture and temperature fluctuations. Each passing year causes more symbols to fade. Grooves that were once sharply defined now lose their contours. It feels as though we are watching an ancient manuscript dissolve, page by page, before we can read it. Preservation efforts continue, but no one can say whether the rock's secrets will survive long enough to be decoded. And it is precisely this fragility, the combination of Cherokee legend, undeciphered symbols, advanced stone carving techniques, and the slow disappearance of the carvings that makes the Judaculla rock petroglyph enigma one of the most compelling ancient mysteries likely to provoke debate for centuries to come. It forces us to revisit history with a timeless question: are we truly aware of the full extent of ancient human ingenuity, skill, and knowledge, or do the deep grooves on this rock represent a chapter of history that humanity has yet to open? The Tassili-Niger Plateau of Algeria has long been regarded as an open-air museum containing tens of thousands of paintings and rock engravings spanning more than 10 millennia. But among this vast collection of imagery, there exists one particular group of figures that has sparked endless debate among archaeologists, anthropologists, and even modern spiritual researchers: the Tassili mushroom figures, depictions of human-like beings carrying mushrooms, wearing mushroom-shaped objects, or appearing to merge with mushroom forms. These figures are unique not only in theme, but also in the atmosphere. They evoke strange, surreal, as if emerging from a spiritual realm or another dimension that modern science still cannot fully explain. What do you think about the mysterious mushroom-headed figures in the ancient Tassili artworks? Do you believe they represent religious symbols, shamanic rituals, or perhaps an experience beyond our current understanding? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The first reason these mushroom-headed beings stand out is their uniqueness. Throughout the history of cave art, from Lascaux to Altamira, from Bimbetka to Kimberley, ancient humans typically illustrated animals' hunting scenes or ritual practices. It is exceedingly rare for them to depict plants or fungi intentionally, and even rarer to portray mushrooms directly integrated with human forms, as seen in Tassili. The figures in the round-head paintings possess rounded heads, simplified bodies, elongated limbs, and most notably objects resembling mushrooms that they hold where or that appear to grow from their bodies. This raises compelling questions. Why did ancient people emphasize mushrooms so prominently? Were these part of daily life, religious symbols, or something even deeper? This leads researchers to the second major point, the hypothesis of shamanic rituals. Some scholars, most prominently Terence McKenna, have proposed that these mushroom-bearing figures may depict the use of psychoactive mushrooms in ancient shamanic practices. The bent postures, exaggerated body forms, and sometimes fragmented or melting silhouettes resemble descriptions of altered states of consciousness found in shamanic cultures worldwide. The difficulty, however, lies in the absence of biological evidence confirming that hallucinogenic mushroom species once existed in this region of North Africa. This archaeological gap makes the hypothesis both fascinating and controversial, placing these artworks on the border between academic inquiry and mystical interpretation. The mystery does not lie solely in the subject matter or ritual implications, but also in the way the figures are illustrated. Many of them appear to be dancing, spinning, or raising mushroom-shaped objects in deeply abstract poses, expressing spiritual interpretation rather than literal depiction. Some figures seem to dissolve into the rock surface or appear as if emerging from it. These postures evoke a sense of non-physical experience, suggesting the artist may have been attempting to portray a spiritual journey rather than everyday events. This deepens the intrigue. Could these artworks be ancient records of trance experiences, moments of connection between humans and an unseen realm? Another element that captivates scholars is the scale and cultural setting. Tassili Niger contains more than 15,000 artworks dating from 12,000 BCE to 1000 BCE. The mushroom figures belong to the Roundhead period, a time whose artistic style does not match the known groups of hunters, pastoralists, or early agricultural populations of the Sahara. Some anthropologists, therefore, suggest that the creators of these paintings may have belonged to a culturally distinct community, one that possibly disappeared without leaving any trace other than these artworks. The mystery grows deeper due to a popular fringe theory claiming these figures represent extraterrestrial beings. Their large heads, elongated bodies, minimal facial details, and overall surreal appearance fuel interpretations, likening them to visitors from another world. While the academic community rejects this idea, it cannot be denied that the distinctly otherworldly style of the round-head figures has inspired speculation for generations. But if all the elements above provide a mystical backdrop for the paintings, there is another aspect that astonishes scientists in a completely different way: the advanced artistic technology, especially the astonishing durability of the pigments, which have lasted tens of thousands of years. This is the core of the analysis and the feature that opens countless unanswered questions. The pigments used in the tesserae mushroom figures are so durable that even in an environment of extreme winds, dryness, and dramatic temperature shifts between day and night, they have retained vivid tones of red, brown, and yellow. Many paintings remain so clear that modern viewers can still visualize the original brushstrokes. Mineral analyses reveal that the artists used mixtures of iron oxide, manganese, and natural earth pigments, sometimes combined with organic binders. Yet the way they processed, ground, mixed, and applied these pigments remains beyond modern explanation. The colors adhere to the sandstone walls as though they have chemically bonded with the rock, a level of permanence that even modern materials struggle to achieve under similar environmental conditions. Even more astonishing, the pigments do not fade uniformly. They seem to have been applied in thin, consistent layers, suggesting that the artists understood the properties of the minerals they used. Spectral analysis even indicates fine microstructures within the pigment layers, an observation that shocks researchers, as it implies experimentation and knowledge of materials far beyond what is expected of prehistoric communities. Many scholars refer to this phenomenon as a lost, ancient color technology, for although we know where the pigments came from, we do not understand how they were made so durable. This color fastness presents a scientific paradox. If the artists had used only natural minerals, the pigments should have faded significantly over millennia of Sahara exposure. If they had used organic binders, those should have decomposed long ago. Yet the colors remain vivid and unmistakable. This suggests the ancient artists may have discovered a method of stabilizing pigments that modern science has yet to replicate. When this technological mystery is placed alongside the mushroom-headed figures themselves, the story becomes even more profound. Were these images so important to ancient people that they used their most advanced methods to preserve them for eternity? Were these paintings not just daily records, but sacred knowledge meant to be passed down through time? If so, the Roundhead artists succeeded brilliantly. For more than 10 millennia later, we are still looking, still analyzing, still debating their meaning. Ultimately, the true purpose of the tesserae mushroom figures remains unknown. They may represent religion, ritual philosophies of growth and regeneration, or profound spiritual experiences that modern minds struggle to interpret. They may also be purely artistic expressions of a vanished community. Yet, it is precisely this ambiguity that makes these paintings one of the most compelling mysteries of prehistoric art, a secret preserved in the desert, protected by an artistic technology far ahead of its time. The Egtved girl has always been regarded as one of the greatest mysteries in European archaeology, not only because her identity remains completely obscured by time, but also due to the strange details found within the oak coffin unearthed in Denmark in 1921. From the delicate remains of a young girl, only about 16 to 18 years old, to the objects buried with her, every detail raises questions with no answers. Yet the most striking and long-debated element is the two-piece outfit she wore, a design many researchers admit is too modern, astonishingly advanced, for a civilization that existed more than 3,400 years ago. If the Egtved girl's two-piece outfit was truly far more advanced than what her era should have allowed, where do you think it came from? A vanished, advanced culture, an unknown cultural exchange, or a mystery archaeology has yet to uncover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When the burial was opened, people saw a young girl laid in an oak coffin, surrounded by traces of flowers, bronze ornaments, and her neatly braided blonde hair. But what shocked archaeologists the most was the twisted cord wool skirt and the wool crop top she wore. In the Nordic Bronze Age, weaving skills existed, but creating a two-piece garment that was both aesthetically refined and technically sophisticated was far beyond what anyone expected from that era. The crop top clung closely to her chest, paired with a twisted cord skirt made of multiple parallel strands, forming a design that even 21st century fashion must acknowledge as bold and unique. Many specialists describe the outfit as a blend of ceremonial wear and performance attire, raising the question of whether the Egtved girl was a religious figure, a ritual dancer, or someone of special status within her community. Even more remarkable is that the wool was woven with impressive uniformity, and the cords were twisted with precise tension, showing that the maker had exceptional craftsmanship, a level many believe would have been difficult for a Bronze Age society using only simple tools. This outfit even led archaeologists to question whether cultural or technological exchange occurred with distant regions not recorded in history, as it represents an advancement far beyond other clothing samples from the same era across Northern Europe. This unimaginable fashion style has made the Egtved girl an iconic figure in archaeology, a Bronze Age girl dressed as though she had stepped out of a modern performance stage. Beyond her unusual clothing, her grave contained many other remarkable elements. Her bronze belt plate, decorated with spiral motifs, symbols often linked to the sun or fertility, has led some theories to suggest she held an important religious role in her community. The presence of bronze ornaments and accompanying objects further indicates she was not an ordinary person, reinforcing the idea that her elaborate burial was due to her high status or sacred societal function. Strontium isotope analysis of her hair and fingernails revealed that the Egtved girl was not native to Denmark. The results suggest she may have been born in the Black Forest region of southern Germany, or in a distant mountainous area hundreds of kilometers away from her burial site. Even more intriguingly, variations in isotopes along segments of her hair show that she traveled repeatedly between her homeland and Denmark during the final year of her life, as though participating in a ritual journey or undertaking a mission connecting two cultural regions. A young girl traveling so extensively during an era when long-distance movement was extremely difficult only deepens the mystery surrounding her identity and purpose. Another troubling and puzzling detail is the discovery of the remains of a little girl about 5 to 6 years old buried with her. The two were not related, and the presence of an unrelated child in the same grave has left researchers bewildered. Was the child a servant, a victim of a ritual, or a spiritually symbolic companion? To this day, none of these theories has been convincingly proven. The cause of the Egtved girl's death also remains unknown. There are no signs of trauma, no evidence of severe illness, and no injuries detectable on her bones. All analyses conclude she died suddenly, but her exact cause of death remains unresolved. Given her possible religious or social role, some have proposed a ritual sacrifice, but the evidence is insufficient. Hypotheses involving exhaustion, hypothermia, or rare diseases have been suggested, but all remain speculative. Perhaps the strangest aspect is that despite her elaborate burial, no Nordic legends or oral traditions mention a figure resembling her. A person of high status buried with meticulous ritual care, yet completely absent from folklore and historical memory, this silence only deepens the enigma surrounding her. All these factors, her unknown identity, distant origins, unusual travel patterns, unclear cause of death, the presence of an unrelated child, and especially her astonishingly modern two-piece outfit, come together to form one of Europe's most perplexing archaeological cases. Her clothing has become a symbol of historical ambiguity. It challenges our understanding of Bronze Age technology and forces us to reconsider whether ancient civilizations were truly as primitive as traditional models suggest. The Egtved girl with her twisted cord skirt and wool crop top offers a portal into a past where ancient people may have developed in ways radically different from our assumptions, where artistry, fashion, and textile technology had reached levels modern science still finds surprising. And for that reason, her story continues to live on, not through the words of ancient storytellers, but through the enduring mysteries preserved within her small oak coffin. The Deir el-Medina Ostraka drawings represent one of the rare visual archives that allow the modern world to peer through the veil of time and witness how ancient Egyptian artisans thought, worked, and created. Unlike the formal reliefs in temples or royal tombs, the drawings on Ostraka, discarded pieces of pottery and limestone, contain an entirely different world of everyday life, intimacy, boldness, and mysteries that remain difficult to decipher. Because they were never intended for public display, these drawings offer the most authentic reflection of the minds and skills of the artisans who served in the grand projects of the Valley of the Kings. And among the wide range of subjects, sketches of deities, satirical figures, magical symbols, and fantastical creatures, one category stands out above all: the cryptic architectural drawings directly linked to the construction of royal tombs, which continue to raise countless questions for modern researchers. What do you think allowed these architectural drawings on the ostraka to reach such almost coded precision? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The ostraka of Deir el-Medina are remarkable primarily because they function as an ancient sketchbook. In this village home to the most skilled craftsmen of Egypt, who were tasked with building the pharaoh's tombs, ostraka served as a medium for practicing hand movements, testing compositions, recalibrating human proportions, and learning to depict deities according to strict religious conventions. It is one of the few chances for posterity to witness the formation process of Egyptian art, a process we usually understand only through its final polished form. Yet many ostraka do not resemble ordinary practice sketches at all. The lines are too precise, the proportions too perfect, the details too meticulous. This has led some scholars to believe they were not mere exercises, but prototypes for teaching apprentices or even confidential drafts used for tomb construction. Whatever the purpose, they demonstrate that ancient Egyptian artisans possessed skills far more advanced than previously assumed. Even more curious is the presence of satirical drawings gods in humorous poses, officials with distorted features, animals behaving like humans. Such images never appear in official monuments. Their boldness raises important questions. Did these artisans have an inner spiritual world where they allowed themselves to challenge religious and social norms? Or were these drawings simply a way to release pressure from the immense responsibility of building the king's eternal resting place? With no surviving texts explaining these images, they remain fascinating fragments of ancient Egyptian psychology. Many ostraca also contain symbols and figures associated with spells, exorcisms, or curses, symbols not entirely aligned with the standard Egyptian writing system. Some depict bound human figures believed to be connected to rituals meant to restrain enemies. These drawings raise questions. Was Deir el-Medina not just a settlement for labor, but also a place where secret rituals were performed to protect the workers during the dangerous process of carving tombs deep within the mountains? Given the extreme difficulty and risks of tomb construction, spiritual practices may have been essential for the artisans' mental and emotional survival. Another striking feature is the blending of artistic styles. Some images deviate from traditional Egyptian conventions. Animals and humans are drawn with unfamiliar proportions, sometimes showing influences from Nubia or the Levant. This has led to speculation that the workforce in Deir el-Medina included artisans from various regions, each bringing different artistic traditions. If true, it suggests that Egyptian art during the Valley of the Kings era may have been shaped by far more cross-cultural interaction than once believed. However, the most astonishing and enigmatic element in the entire ostraka collection is the series of cryptic architectural drawings related to royal tomb construction. Among thousands of fragments, scholars have found sketches of floor plans, cross-sections, ramps, burial chambers, corridor axes, and even technical markings with clear mathematical intent. These drawings reveal that ancient Egyptian artisans possessed a system of measurement and geometric rules far more sophisticated than previously imagined. The precision between the tiny sketches, sometimes only 10 to 15 centimeters long, and the actual colossal tombs carved into the mountains shows almost no significant deviation. This leads to the critical question: how did they achieve near-perfect, three-dimensional accuracy using only simple tools such as plumb lines, wooden rulers, and measuring rods? Some architectural sketches include unnervingly straight lines, no shakiness, no correction marks, no signs of trial measurements. This suggests that artisans may have used geometric techniques now lost to history. Certain curves are drawn so smoothly and symmetrically that even a modern artist would require a compass or technical instrument. Yet the craftsmen executed them on rough pottery surfaces with reed brushes dipped in black or red ink. Even more mysterious is the absence of explanatory text. Artisans seem to understand these drawings implicitly, perhaps following an oral tradition of technical knowledge that has since vanished. Some Egyptologists believe the ostraka served only as preliminary drafts, and that the full plans were drawn on papyrus, an organic material unlikely to survive millennia. But others propose the opposite. Ostraka may have been the primary working documents, lightweight pocket blueprints, used by different work crews and discarded when no longer needed. On closer examination, many ostraka reveal an advanced understanding of orientation, slope, and spatial relationships between tomb chambers. Some resemble geometric ciphers, intersecting lines, tiny marks, distances divided into consistent ratios, often matching the layout of actual tombs, such as KV35, KV34, or KV62. When modern archaeologists place these ostraka alongside contemporary measurements, the drawings appear to encode a technical language modern civilization still struggles to decode. An even deeper mystery emerges when recognizing that many plans incorporate ritual concepts, tomb axes aligned with the rising sun, corridors leading into the mountain's symbolic heart chambers arranged to mirror the journey of Osiris. This shows that ancient Egyptian architecture was not merely structural, it intertwined mathematics, religion, and cosmic philosophy. Thus, the architectural drawings on ostraka were not simply technical documents. They may have been sacred codes of the tomb builders, those entrusted with creating the pharaoh's pathway to eternity, the earthly manifestation of Horus and Osiris. Every line may hold symbolic meaning, every ratio may stem from cosmic principles, and every distance may reflect philosophical ideas about the afterlife. In this sense, the drawings are not just blueprints, they are rituals, secrets, and the intellectual heritage of the most elite craftsmen of ancient Egypt. Viewed as a whole, the Deir el-Medina Ostraka drawings form an irreplaceable archive for understanding the technical, artistic, spiritual, and intellectual world of ancient Egyptian artisans. The tiny lines on these discarded fragments reveal how they built massive tombs deep within the mountains, how they perceived the cosmos, how they taught their craft, how they protected themselves, and how they recorded truths absent from formal monuments. And even though tens of thousands of ostraka have been studied, countless questions remain unanswered. What tools allowed such precision? Why do some drawings resemble geometric codes? And how many more ostraka still lie buried beneath the desert, waiting to complete the story of the anonymous masters who created the eternal resting places of the pharaohs? The Bandiagara Telem caves are regarded as one of the most impressive and mysterious ancient heritage complexes in Africa, not only because of their archaeological value, but also because of the profound questions surrounding how ancient people could have accomplished constructions that seem to exceed the technical capabilities of their time. The most astonishing feature, and the central point of all scientific debate, is the fact that the Telem tombs are located in such precarious positions that today even professional climbers or archaeological teams equipped with modern gear must use safety ropes, metal scaffolding, and climbing equipment to reach them. The tombs sit at heights ranging from 40 to 60 meters, sometimes even higher, on the vertical cliffs of the Bandiagara escarpment, prompting anyone who sees them to wonder, how could an ancient culture without iron ladders, synthetic ropes, or rock anchoring technology have transported bodies, artifacts, and building materials to locations so dangerously elevated? The question becomes even more baffling when considering that the tombs are not merely natural rock crevices, but were expanded, reinforced, and enhanced with mud-built storage structures, an undertaking that required people to transport materials upward continuously for long periods of time. To date, no archaeological evidence of wooden ladders or scaffolding has been found, and if such wooden structures once existed, they would have decayed long ago. Yet the total absence of any trace renders these theories unstable. Some researchers suggest that the terrain may have been different in the past. Perhaps there were ledges, stone shelves, or protruding landforms that have since collapsed, but stratigraphic imaging and cliff surveys have revealed no clear signs of large-scale geological change. Others hypothesize that the Telem possessed an exceptional climbing technique, possibly utilizing extremely durable plant fiber ropes or a method of wedging wooden pegs into cracks in the rock, though no direct evidence has been discovered. Dogon oral traditions preserved by the community that arrived later describe the Telem as small people who moved as swiftly as birds, and some versions even claim they could fly, which, though not to be taken literally, reflects the extraordinary impression the Telem left regarding their ability to scale cliffs. What is strange is that the Dogon who have lived in Bandiagara for centuries after the disappearance of the Telem are still unable to replicate the techniques that their ancestors once described. This only deepens the shroud of mystery surrounding this ancient group. What do you think the Telem people used to transport bodies and materials up to these cliff-perched tombs? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When archaeologists finally reached the tombs, they discovered naturally mummified bodies preserved almost intact for centuries. thanks to the region's dry climate, strong winds, and the elevated position of the caves. The Telem's choice to place burials in wind-swept locations was no coincidence. Such conditions prevented rapid decomposition and desiccated the bodies, preserving hair, skin, textiles, and sometimes jewelry. This remarkable preservation suggests that the Telem understood the local environmental conditions very well, but how long had they held such knowledge, and through what means did they apply it to their burial practices? The textile fragments wrapped around the bodies show relatively sophisticated weaving techniques, and the preservation of grave goods indicates that the caves remained completely dry, allowing no rain or moisture to enter. These findings not only astonish researchers, but also raise profound questions about the true intention behind elevating the dead so high above the ground. Did the Telem believe that the soul needed to be separated from the earth? Did they see height as a pathway leading to the gods? Or was it simply a protective strategy to keep remains safe from animals and grave robbers? No theory fully accounts for all the evidence. Inside, the caves are cylindrical or block-shaped storage structures made of mud and wood. The strange thing is that despite being made from materials considered fragile, these constructions have survived for hundreds of years, nearly untouched by decay. Archaeologists suspect that the Telem mixed the mud with special binding agents, perhaps plant fibers, ash, or a type of Sahel tree resin that made it more durable than usual, but analyses of the samples have not yielded conclusive results. The more scholars study these structures, the more they realize that Telem building techniques far exceed what is commonly assumed about small, sparsely populated communities in West Africa prior to the 15th century. The sudden disappearance of the Telem from the historical record introduces yet another layer of enigma. Did they migrate elsewhere, or were they absorbed into another population? The amount of skeletal remains and anthropological evidence is insufficient to determine their linguistic affiliation, and no written documents exist. What little is known comes primarily from Dogon oral tradition, but such stories may have been embellished over generations. When the Dogon arrived and took over the region, they reused some of the Telem caves and even adopted certain cliff-building practices, yet they consistently stated that the Telem were not their ancestors. This indicates that the Telem existed as an independent culture long before the Dogon's arrival, and then vanished without leaving evidence of their movements. Although limited in number, the ritual spaces deep inside certain caves show that the Telem had their own system of religion and symbolism. Small objects, amulets, wooden figurine fragments, or ceremonial decorations have been found in good condition, proving that the caves served not only as burial places, but also as venues for sacred rites. Why did they choose the cliffs, dangerous, inaccessible, and isolated, as spiritual sites? One theory suggests they sought to separate the realms of the living and the dead. Another proposes that the elevation symbolized closeness to celestial deities. But all these ideas remain speculative in the absence of written records or original Telem mythology. Another factor contributing to the mystery of Bandiagara is the unexplained cultural connection between the Telem and the Dogon. Although the two cultures did not coexist, certain Dogon rituals, particularly those associated with the passage of the soul, bear striking resemblance to the Telem burial arrangements. This raises a critical question: where did the Dogon learn these practices? They claim no ancestral connection to the Telem, so why do such similarities exist? It could be a case of cultural borrowing after the Dogon occupied the region, or perhaps both groups inherited deeper traditions from an even older, unidentified culture. When all elements are considered together, the impossibly high cliff tombs, the exceptionally preserved bodies, the enduring mud and wood structures, the mysterious disappearance of the Telem, and the unusual Dogon legends, the Bandiagara Telem caves, emerge as one of Africa's most enduring, unsolved archaeological mysteries. They stand as evidence that many ancient cultures possessed skills, knowledge, and capacities far beyond what the current historical narrative acknowledges. The cliff-perched tombs are not merely remnants of the past, they actively challenge modern understanding, forcing us to reconsider what ancient humans were capable of achieving without modern technology. And it is precisely their inaccessibility and inexplicability that keep researchers returning year after year, searching for answers, but often finding only more questions. The Birdman carvings at Orongo, located on the rim of the Rano Kau crater on Easter Island, have long been regarded as one of the greatest enigmas of Rapa Nui culture. Seen from afar, Orongo appears to be nothing more than a ceremonial village, perched precariously on steep cliffs overlooking the ocean. But upon entering the area, one encounters an entirely different world. More than 1,800 stone carvings depicting strange beings, bird heads, human bodies, outstretched wings round motifs symbolizing the deity Make, and flowing lines representing ritual and authority. The dense concentration of carvings in such a small area makes the site resemble a sacred open-air museum created by the hands of the Rapa Nui people. In your opinion, what is the most mysterious aspect of the Orongo Birdman petroglyphs? Where do you think the remarkably precise stone carving techniques at Orongo came from a lost ancestral skill or knowledge far beyond what we typically imagine of the Rapa Nui people? Share your thoughts in the comments below. What particularly draws the attention of archaeologists, anthropologists, and technologists is the mass appearance of the Birdman motif, something not found in any other Polynesian culture, as if this place were the center of an isolated belief system that existed in parallel, but did not share direct origins with neighboring islands. These carvings are all connected to the Birdman ritual Yi Tangata Manu, a deadly competition in which warriors had to swim across rough, shark-infested waters to Motu Nui Island to retrieve the first egg of the sooty tern. Whoever successfully returned with the egg became the Birdman, the most powerful figure of the year, serving as an intermediary between the god Make and humanity. However, despite the immense importance of this ritual, it left behind no detailed written documentation, making the meaning of the petroglyphs understandable only through oral history and archaeological traces. Yet the most astonishing aspect to researchers is the stone carving technique at Orongo, an element that the more closely examined, the more perplexing it becomes. The ancient Rapa Nui toolkit consisted only of stone bone and natural materials with absolutely no metal. Yet the Birdman carvings are sharp, uniform, and consistently deep, as if made by a tool much harder and sharper than stone. Some carved lines run along natural curves of the rock, while maintaining an unusually smooth finish, resembling the result of calculated craftsmanship rather than simple manual chiseling. Many carvings even lie directly exposed to strong sea winds, salty rain, and harsh sunlight for centuries, yet show surprisingly little erosion. This raises the question, how did the Rapa Nui, with their rudimentary technology, manage to create such precise and enduring lines? Some theories suggest they used extremely hard basalt tools, grinding layer by layer to shape the carvings, but this would require tremendous amounts of labor, potentially months or years, for a single motif. Other carvings show deep, sharply edged grooves that appear almost identical to marks left by metal blades or rotary tools, something incompatible with any known material on the island. If the Rapa Nui had no metal, then how did they create motifs of such refinement The more one examines the precision of the carvings, the more anomalies appear. On certain stones, the birdman figure is carved in remarkably proportional form, with the curve of the bird's head transitioning smoothly into the human shoulders, suggesting geometric calculation. Some motifs repeat across multiple stones with near-identical accuracy, something extremely difficult to achieve through entirely manual carving. Researchers have also discovered that several carvings are positioned so that sunlight or the shadow of rock edges falls directly onto them on specific days of the year, potentially aligning with the nesting cycle of the seabirds or the beginning of the birdman ritual. This suggests that the artists carved not just for religious purposes, but also incorporated astronomical knowledge and intellectual effort far beyond what simple tools would imply. The observational skill, measurement accuracy, and deliberate placement strongly contradict any hypothesis of spontaneous carving. Even so, the greatest puzzle may be this: why does the entire island of Rapa Nui, famous for its colossal moai statues, contain an unusually high concentration of carvings only at Orongo? Was Orongo not just a ceremonial site, but also the intellectual center of the birdman religion? Or were these petroglyphs part of a lost symbolic language, serving as records of rituals, laws, or major historical events? If so, the advanced carving technique was not just artistic expression, but a medium for storing information, requiring the artisans to maintain absolute precision, so the message remained intact through time. Modern archaeologists analyzing the stone surfaces have found multiple overlapping layers of carvings, indicating that petroglyph creation continued for centuries. Yet paradoxically, despite this long timeline, the artistic style remains nearly unchanged. This contradicts the natural evolution of traditional art, which typically transforms over generations. Such unusual stability has led some scholars to propose that the Rapa Nui possessed a secret carving tradition passed down within a priestly class, a technique that vanished entirely when its final practitioners disappeared. Adding to the mystery is the abrupt disappearance of the birdman ritual in the 19th century, leaving behind an entire symbolic system with no surviving interpreters. European missionary influence may have contributed to its collapse. Environmental decline may also have made the ritual unsustainable. Regardless of the cause, the resulting gap in knowledge turned the petroglyphs into a library without words, where the images remain, but the stories have fallen silent. All these factors make the Orongo birdman petroglyphs one of the most profound mysteries of Rapa Nui. The carvings combine ritual significance, astronomical observation, social authority, and an advanced stone carving technique far beyond what one would expect from a culture without metal tools. In particular, the carving technique, seemingly simple, yet actually inexplicable, stands as evidence of a lost knowledge system, a skill that modern researchers still cannot fully replicate using primitive tools. Standing at Orongo, gazing down at the roaring ocean below, and watching the birdman figures appear under the angled sunlight, one cannot help but wonder, how did people living on a small island in the middle of the Pacific manage to create works so beautiful, so durable, and so technically baffling? And what happened to the knowledge that enabled them to achieve such feats? Perhaps like many of Rapa Nui's mysteries, the answer vanished with the last individuals who participated in the birdman ritual, leaving behind these silent yet haunting carvings that continue to challenge modern understanding. The Tirona Lost City Stairways, the ancient stair system leading up to Ciudad Perdida. The lost city, hidden deep within the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta rainforest, has long been regarded as one of the most mysterious achievements of the pre-Columbian world. Their existence not only demonstrates the technical prowess and social organization of the Tairona people, but also raises a series of questions that have never been fully answered. The entire complex includes more than 1,200 stone steps winding through the forest, connecting circular terraces, water channels, and ancient residential zones. What astonishes archaeologists most is not only the scale or age of the structure, but its unbelievable topographical precision, far beyond what they believed possible for an ancient tropical civilization. What do you think about the extraordinary engineering precision of the Tairona people? Do you believe this level of topographical accuracy was achieved through generations of observation, lost ancient knowledge, or something even more mysterious? Share your thoughts in the comments below. First of all, the existence of a stairway system stretching for kilometers across steep, humid, landslide-prone mountain terrain is already extraordinary. Instead of being eroded or collapsing over time, many steps have retained their shape after more than a millennium. The stone slabs are fitted tightly without mortar, yet remain stable under relentless rainforest downpours. This reveals the Tairona's deep understanding of stone properties, gravity compression, and geological stability. They knew how to select stones of appropriate hardness, how to stack them so weight is evenly distributed, and how to use the natural mountain slope as a structural foundation. While most contemporary American civilizations built on flatlands or plateaus, the Tairona chose one of the steepest and most difficult mountain environments for their city. This decision alone adds a profound air of mystery to Ciudad Perdida and its stairway system. But the greatest and most significant mystery lies in the level of topographical precision that surpasses all expectations. The stairways were not arranged randomly. They were aligned with contour lines, curving with the mountain's natural shape, optimizing rainwater flow, and minimizing landslides. When modern researchers used 3D surveying technology and digital terrain models, they discovered that the Tairona design matches the optimal paths generated by computer simulations. A nearly impossible fact, considering the Tairona had no satellite imagery, no advanced measurement tools, and no written records of engineering methods. This raises the question, how were they able to determine elevation slope, water drainage paths, and structural load points using only manual observation? Many experts believe generations were spent reading the land, but even so, the accuracy remains almost unrealistic. In many sections, the stairways lead to enormous circular terraces that once supported houses, temples, or ceremonial centers. These terraces were also adjusted according to the natural slope to form perfectly level platforms. There are no signs of crude measurement methods. Everything appears to have been guided by a sophisticated system of calculation, ensuring gravitational balance and efficient water movement. Some terraces even rest precisely on extremely stable bedrock, as if the Tairona possessed the ability to see through the earth to identify ideal placement. Additionally, the hidden drainage networks beneath the stairways continue to astonish researchers. Instead of building open channels that clog easily, the Tairona created stacked stone layers with tiny gaps that allow water to seep through and be naturally redirected. This method resembles technologies that other civilizations only achieved at much later, more advanced stages. Meanwhile, Ciudad Perdida emerged around the 8th century, far too early for a mountain-based agricultural society to possess such engineering sophistication. Many researchers hypothesize that the Tairona preserved a generational knowledge transfer system based on memory observation and environmental study, allowing them to accumulate insights far beyond the limits of their rudimentary tools. Another strange detail is that some stairways seem to deliberately avoid certain areas of the mountainside. While no official explanation exists, researchers believe these zones were sacred or considered inappropriate according to Tairona cosmology. Their descendants, the Kogi people, still believe Ciudad Perdida is a nexus connecting the physical world and the spiritual realm. Pathways, they say, do more than enable movement. They channel energy and maintain communication with ancestors. If this is true, then the stairway system is not merely an engineering feat, but a sacred map, encoded in ways modern perception cannot fully understand. The location of Ciudad Perdida deepens the mystery further. Why did the Tairona choose a remote, dangerous place with enormous logistical challenges to build a major urban center? Some hypotheses suggest protection from invaders or proximity to pure water sources, but these remain speculative. The reality is that constructing thousands of stone steps in dense rainforest demanded not only technical skill, but extraordinary social organization, centralized labor, and long-term architectural vision. A vision surpassing that of many other ancient American cultures. The final and equally profound mystery is why the city was abandoned. The Tairona disappeared from Ciudad Perdida as though they had vanished from history, leaving behind a stone metropolis reclaimed by the forest for hundreds of years until its rediscovery in the 20th century. Whether they left due to disease, conflict, climate change, or spiritual reasons remains unknown. Their disappearance transforms the stairway system into a silent reminder that there once existed a civilization capable of reading the land so deeply that they could convert nature into architecture, an ability humanity today still cannot replicate with equal harmony. And that is why the Tairona Lost City Stairways remains one of the most captivating archaeological mysteries of South America, a structure that is simultaneously practical, sacred, technical, and enigmatic. Above all, it stands as powerful evidence of an ancient intelligence that achieved a near supernatural level of topographical precision, surpassing the limitations of their rudimentary tools and opening up a grand, unanswered question: what did the Tairona truly understand that modern humans have forgotten? In the deep, ancient valley of Kilmartin Glen, there exists one of the most enigmatic, prehistoric heritages of Europe, a complex of rock carvings spanning thousands of years across massive granite slabs. These carvings, cup marks, ring marks, water channels, spirals, and many other mysterious shapes not only hint at a symbol-rich culture, but also raise profound questions about the technological capabilities of ancient humans. After centuries of research, archaeologists still cannot provide satisfactory answers about who created them, what their purpose was, and especially how they could achieve such impossible precision on some of the most durable stones in nature. In an era where tools consisted mainly of stone, wood, and bone, the presence of perfectly round, balanced, symmetrical, and even geometrically refined patterns at Kilmartin Glen has led many to wonder whether we have underestimated the abilities of our ancestors. Do you think prehistoric people truly possessed such advanced stone-carving skills? Or are we missing an entire chapter of ancient knowledge that has been lost to time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The first thing that captivates researchers is the dense concentration of cup and ring marks, circular depressions carved deeply into rock surfaces, sometimes surrounded by multiple concentric rings. The mystery lies not only in their form, but in the fact that this type of carving appears not only in Scotland, but also in Spain, Italy, Portugal, Scandinavia, India, and even South America. There is no evidence of extensive cultural contact between these distant civilizations, yet they produced remarkably similar stone art motifs. This has led many to speculate about the existence of a universal language of ancient humanity or a symbolic system rooted deep within the primordial mind, transcending borders and eras. However, what truly makes Kilmartin Glen unique is not merely the abundance of symbols, but the exceptional stone carving technique. The cup marks here are not rough hollows. They are almost perfectly circular, with consistent depth, smooth surfaces, and delicately executed surrounding rings. Creating a symmetrical depression using crude stone tools is already a challenge, yet ancient people repeated this feat across hundreds of square meters of granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth. Granite does not easily erode or fracture. Even with modern metal tools, creating evenly spaced concentric circles requires skill and time. Yet somehow, people living 5,000 to 6,000 years ago possessed a capability that modern researchers struggle to replicate precisely. Experimental archaeology has attempted to recreate these carvings using stone hammers and hard cobbles, but results show that creating just a single cup mark can take many hours or even days, and the achieved roundness is nowhere near that of the ancient examples. The surrounding rings, those concentric circles, are even more challenging, as they require uniform depth-stable radius and smooth curves without trembling hands or shifting axes. Some spiral motifs found at Kilmartin Glen puzzle researchers even further. Producing a perfectly even spiral on stone requires strong geometric visualization skills or a measuring technique unknown to us. This contradicts conventional views of Neolithic technology. When examined under microscopes, some carved surfaces show remarkably consistent depth, indicating controlled and repetitive force application. This leads to theories that ancient people may have used more advanced tools, possibly early copper implements or sand abrasion techniques. Yet no direct evidence supports the existence of such tools at that time. Other more daring hypotheses suggest that ancient people may have known how to soften stone surfaces using fire or organic substances, but modern experiments have not validated any such method as sufficient to explain the precision seen at Kilmartin Glen. Beyond technique, the rock carvings at Kilmartin Glen demonstrate intelligent spatial arrangement. Many large carved stones are oriented toward important locations in the valley burial cairns, standing stones, henges, and ceremonial alignments spanning generations. This suggests that the symbols were not merely decorative, but perhaps part of a spiritual map used in ancestor-related or astronomical rituals. Some models analyzing the placement of the stones, the orientation of concentric rings, and the direction of channels reveal potential correlations with the movement of the sun during events such as the equinox and solstice. This may indicate a form of ancient astronomical knowledge still poorly understood today. The relationship between the carvings and water deepens the mystery. When it rains, water collects in the cup marks and flows along the carved channels like a miniature hydrological system. What is striking is that the water does not scatter randomly but moves in a patterned way, suggesting that ancient people predicted and shaped the flow intentionally. Some archaeologists believe the rituals may be connected to a waters of the soul concept, where water symbolizes transition, rebirth, or connection with the dead. This idea is further supported by the presence of many carved stones near ancient burial grounds or sacred sites. Despite thousands of symbols, no one has yet deciphered their meaning. They do not resemble any known writing system, nor do they match established religious iconography. Even more puzzling is that for thousands of years, the carving style remained nearly unchanged, as if ancient people were following a sacred rule we no longer understand. A cultural tradition that spans millennia yet lacks stylistic evolution is extraordinarily rare in human history. And then suddenly the tradition vanished without any transitional signs. With modern technology such as laser scanning and 3D modeling, researchers are attempting to understand the carvings more clearly, but the overarching conclusion only deepens the enigma. Ancient humans achieved a level of technical mastery far beyond what history acknowledges. The carvings may represent art, ritual mapping, or a fully developed knowledge system that has been entirely lost. Thus, the greatest question remains, echoing across thousands of years. Who created these symbols, with what tools, and how did they accomplish something so advanced for their time? To this day, the stones of Kilmartin Glen remain silent, and the mystery only grows deeper, as if they were designed to challenge human understanding across all ages. The Fuente Magna Bowl, discovered near Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, has long been one of the most controversial artifacts in the world because it contains something impossible: the presence of characters strikingly similar to Sumerian, an ancient writing system from Mesopotamia, half a world away from South America. When the first carvings on the bowl's surface were examined, researchers immediately realized that they bore no resemblance to any artistic tradition of the Andes. Not local pictographs, not Tiwanaku symbols, not common ritual motifs, but instead sharp angular signs that even appear reminiscent of Proto-Sumerian cuneiform, something that, according to conventional history, could never have existed in the Americas. This paradox transformed the Fuente Magna Bowl into a mystery that defies all archaeological norms, turning it into an anomalous artifact that challenges everything we think we know about prehistoric cultural contact. Do you think the Sumerian-like characters found in South America are a coincidence, a fabrication, or evidence of an ancient contact we have yet to uncover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The most controversial aspect lies in the fact that the bowl's surface contains two types of script. The upper portion features pictographic symbols highly reminiscent of Mesopotamian record-keeping, while the lower portion shows short, angular strokes that seem like a mixture between early cuneiform and ancient Sumerian religious symbols. When compared visually, many similarities are difficult to dismiss. Parallel vertical lines, downward-pointing triangles representing syllables, plow-shaped symbols used to denote divine names. All of this leads many to believe that the script on the bowl represents a symbolic system too specific to be a coincidence. If this were mere coincidence, it would be an anomaly defying normal probability. Although the academic mainstream has not accepted it, some fringe linguists claim the inscriptions can be partially decoded, suggesting the text is a prayer dedicated to the goddess Ninhursag, the Sumerian deity of fertility, earth, and creation. If true, the bowl would not only be a strange artifact, but also evidence that a form of religious belief thought to be exclusive to ancient Mesopotamia somehow appeared in the highlands of the Andes. The impossibility deepens further when considering geography. From Mesopotamia to Titicaca is more than 15,000 kilometers, requiring travel across oceans, deserts, jungles, and countless technological barriers that ancient humans are assumed not to have overcome. There is no archaeological evidence that the Sumerians ever possessed transoceanic navigation capabilities. No textual records mention them reaching distant continents. No documentation refers to contact between the Old World and the New World millennia before known voyages. And yet the existence of the Fuente Magna Bowl stands like a silent declaration that history may be more complex than we believe. It forces humanity to ask, have we overlooked an entire chapter in the story of civilization? Could ancient transoceanic voyages have occurred without leaving traces we can still detect? Or did there once exist a prehistoric civilization with far wider cultural reach than history currently acknowledges? This paradox is precisely why archaeologists are extremely cautious. Few wish to accept an artifact that challenges centuries of established historical research. Some experts suspect the bowl might be a 20th century forgery or a creation by a local artisan influenced by fragmented knowledge of Mesopotamian writing. But supporters of its authenticity argue that the ceramic material, animal motifs, and carving techniques reflect ancient Andean craftsmanship rather than modern imitation. Furthermore, the combination of Tiwanaku-style ceramics with ancient Sumerian script would be exceedingly difficult for a forger to reproduce without mastery of both cultural traditions. Many independent archaeologists believe that the lack of official excavation records may be due to the bowl having been found before the area was formally regulated by archaeological authorities, resulting in lost documentation rather than proof of fraud. Beyond its inscriptions, the Fuente Magna bowl is unusual in shape. It resembles a large ceremonial cup, with thick walls, smooth yet balanced curvature, and animal motifs that do not match any Andean sculptural tradition. Many carved figures resemble Mesopotamian animal symbolism rather than native styles. Because of this, the artifact stands apart from all existing archaeological classifications. It is too distinct to belong to Tiwanaku, yet cannot be confidently attributed to any Old World civilization either. To this day, the most pressing question remains, if the writing truly is Sumerian, how did it end up in Bolivia? Could there have been ancient transoceanic contact unknown to humanity? Did the Sumerians possess maritime abilities far beyond current archaeological understanding, or did a migrant group bring Mesopotamian culture and religion to the Andes during a time when mainstream science believes all civilizations were isolated? No explanation is satisfactory, which is why the Fuente Magna bowl continues to be a focal point of debate. Another layer of mystery surrounds the context of the bowl's discovery. It was not unearthed in a formal archaeological dig, but found by local residents. With no excavation records, no stratigraphic documentation, and no cultural layer context, all interpretations about its age, function, and origin rely on indirect reasoning. This opens two contrasting possibilities. Either the artifact is evidence that the ancient world was far more interconnected than believed, or it is merely an unusual coincidence that has been overinterpreted. However, more and more independent researchers argue that the similarities between the bowl's characters and Proto-Sumerian script are too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Viewed in a broader context, the Fuente Magna bowl is linked to the greater enigma of the Titicaca region and the ancient Tiwanaku civilization, one of the most perplexing cultures in history. Tiwanaku is famous for its massive stone structures such as Puma Punku, crafted with astonishing precision, its legends of gods arriving from the sea, and its abrupt cultural discontinuity. Many believe the Fuente Magna bowl may be a stray piece of a much larger historical puzzle, possibly connected to a civilization older than Tiwanaku, or even representing contact between two regions that conventional history insists could never have met. For these reasons, the Fuente Magna bowl is far more than just an ancient vessel. It is a question, one that challenges humanity's entire understanding of the past. It forces us to consider possibilities often dismissed as impossible encounters between civilizations separated by vast distances, the spread of ancient religious symbols across oceans, or a shared human history now reduced to faint remnants. No one can fully disprove the bowl's authenticity, Yet no one can definitively prove it is genuine. It is precisely this gap between what we know and what we cannot explain that makes the Fuente Magna Bowl one of the most captivating archaeological mysteries ever discovered. At the ruins of Nestor's palace, the clay tablets inscribed with Linear B have survived for more than 3 millennia, and their survival was not thanks to human intention, but to the great fire that destroyed the entire palace. This is a peculiar archaeological paradox. Destruction itself became the force that preserved history. Before the fire, these tablets were merely sun-dried clay, a fragile material that could break apart with even mild impact or moisture. The Mycenaeans did not fire them because they did not intend long-term storage. The tablets were used only for one accounting year, yet the catastrophic blaze at the end of the Late Bronze Age fired them into ceramic-like hardness, allowing them to endure through time and become one of the most important archives of early Greek language and Mycenaean administration. These tablets reveal a highly organized world, lists of weavers, food distribution, metal inventory, ritual offerings, classifications of war horses, and the intricate structure of bureaucratic offices. But the most chilling detail is that the final inscriptions of Pylos ended abruptly, as though the scribes were forced to flee their workplaces in panic. There is no sign of gradual decline or administrative transition. Everything stops, as if disaster struck in an instant. Many tablets contain military information showing that the palace was under unusual tension, coastal surveillance, rapid troop assignments, and messengers moving urgently throughout the region. The entire palace appears to have been an administrative machine preparing for an imminent threat, a threat it ultimately could not escape. The partially burned tablets also provide clues to the intensity of the fire. Some were fully converted into ceramic, some were charred only at the edges, and some cracked in half during the natural firing, as the flames spread unevenly through different rooms. This allowed archaeologists to reconstruct the fire's progression. Flames erupted extremely fast. No intervention was able to stop them in time, and the palace structure collapsed section by section. They believe this was not an ordinary fire, but a deliberate act of destruction or an attack-related blaze. The event reduced the power center of Pylos to ashes, yet ironically preserved the administrative tablets with their inscriptions intact. Still, the greatest mystery concerns the entity that burned Pylos. This is the question that archaeologists, historians, and Bronze Age scholars have debated for decades. There is no direct evidence, but several hypotheses, each compelling and tragic in its own way. The first and most widespread hypothesis is an attack by the Sea Peoples, a confederation of mysterious groups who destroyed numerous civilizations around the Mediterranean in the late 13th century BCE. Major civilizations such as the Hittite Empire, Ugarit, and Cyprus collapsed, and signs of warfare spread across the region. Pylos shows signs of coastal defense preparations often associated with seaborne threats. However, the Sea Peoples typically left clear evidence, layers of ash spearheads, arrowheads, or distinct destruction patterns. At Pylos, the destruction is extensive but lacks concrete traces of battle. This makes the Sea Peoples hypothesis simultaneously strong and incomplete. The second hypothesis involves internal warfare among Mycenaean kingdoms. During this period, Mycenaean power structures were fracturing. Major centers such as Mycenae, Tiryns, and Thebes all suffered fires within this same time frame. If Mycenaean city-states were fighting for dominance, Pylos could easily have been a target. Moreover, many Linear B tablets at Pylos record troop mobilization inland, as well as on the coast, indicating that the threat might have come from the land. The puzzling part is the absence of abandoned weapons or evidence of a large battle. If it was an internal attack, perhaps the victors cleared the site, or perhaps the citizens fled before any real clash occurred. The third hypothesis is an internal uprising. Mycenaean palaces concentrated wealth and authority, imposing taxes and labor on the populace. Should deep social tensions have existed, a revolt could have ignited and led to the burning of the palace. Yet the tablets show no sign of economic instability or resource shortage before the collapse. In fact, the system appears to have been functioning unusually smoothly, a detail that only deepens the mystery. The fourth hypothesis suggests a natural disaster, perhaps an earthquake that caused fires to spread from oil storerooms or metal workshops. Bronze Age Greece lay in an active seismic zone, and several cities collapsed due to earthquakes. However, in most earthquake-related fires, structural collapse happens first, followed by fire. At Pylos, evidence suggests the fire erupted fiercely first, and only afterward did the roof collapse. This weakens the natural disaster explanation. The greatest paradox is this: Pylos had no major fortifications, no massive walls or surrounding citadels, unlike other Mycenaean palaces. Some scholars argue that Pylos felt safe due to its geography or diplomatic relationships. Others believe this very absence made it vulnerable to sudden attack. If they knew danger was coming, why didn't they reinforce defenses? Was the attacker someone familiar? Someone they did not expect to betray them? Or did the threat approach so swiftly that there was no time to prepare? The Linear B tablets reflect something deeply unsettling. The palace knew danger was near, yet could not escape its fate. The final tablets record coastal guards, weapon distribution, and urgent messenger routes, all signs of an escalating emergency. But then, everything falls silent. No more tablets were written. No record describes what happened next. It is as if the entire administrative machine shut down in a single fateful moment, and flames consumed everything. So who burned Pylos? To this day, no one can answer with certainty. What remains are ashes, collapsed walls, and clay tablets accidentally fired by the inferno. They do not recount the attack. They preserve only the daily operations, administrative records, and hints of worry in the final days. They resemble an unfinished diary, silent on the decisive moment that sealed the kingdom's fate. The one certainty is this: the moment of destruction preserved the most precious evidence of Mycenaean civilization. The fire did not merely end Pylos, it preserved its final voice through the Linear B tablets, allowing future generations to read, study, and question the catastrophe that erased one of the Bronze Age's greatest power centers. And until new evidence emerges, the greatest mystery of Pylos, the identity of the one who set the palace ablaze, will remain one of archaeology's most captivating unanswered questions.